Beneath the scorching sun and endless sands of the Nile, a civilization rose that has fascinated the world for millennia. Towering pyramids pierce the sky, their stones whispering secrets older than history itself. But beyond the grandeur and gold, the pharaohs of ancient Egypt guarded enigmas that continue to defy understanding. How did they command such immense power, constructing monuments that still baffle modern engineers? What hidden knowledge did they possess, passed down in cryptic symbols, elaborate tombs, and forbidden rituals? Some say the answers lie in the shadows of the Valley of the Kings, where chambers untouched for thousands of years conceal artifacts and inscriptions that hint at truths humanity is only beginning to glimpse. Others point to the stars, suggesting the pharaohs' ambitions stretched beyond Earth, aligned with cosmic forces we barely comprehend. As we peel back the layers of history, the line between legend and reality blurs, revealing a world of astonishing mysteries, some documented, others erased by time. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the hidden world of Egypt's pharaohs, where every stone holds a story, and every story conceals a secret waiting to be uncovered. Along the banks of the Nile, where the river's waters shimmer like liquid gold beneath the setting sun, lies the ancient city of Alexandria. Once a jewel of the Hellenistic world, it was a place where ambition, intellect, and desire for power intertwined in ways that still captivate historians and dreamers alike. Among its most enigmatic figures stands Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, whose life and death have been studied, romanticized, and mythologized for over 2 millennia. Yet, for all the fascination she commands, one question remains painfully elusive. Where does Cleopatra truly rest? Historical accounts tell us that Cleopatra, alongside her lover and political ally Mark Antony, met her tragic end in 30 BC following the Roman conquest of Egypt. Ancient sources suggest that her death was swift, purposeful, and shrouded in ritual. Plutarch, Cassius Dio, and other chroniclers describe a queen who faced Rome's encroaching power with dignity, her final act a testament to her cunning and resolve. What they do not tell us, however, is the location of her tomb. Archaeologists have scoured the sands, examined the ruins of temples, and pored over papyrus fragments. But the queen's final resting place remains unfound, a ghost hidden among the relics of a vanished empire. The city Cleopatra once ruled has itself been transformed by time. Alexandria, rebuilt and expanded over centuries, has swallowed much of its ancient past beneath layers of soil, silt, and modern construction. Some archaeologists believe that her tomb lies somewhere near Taposiris Magna, a temple complex 28 kilometers west of the city, dedicated to Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Excavations there have revealed burials, inscriptions, and artifacts, suggesting the presence of a royal figure, yet no definitive evidence has confirmed Cleopatra's presence. Could the queen, famed for her intelligence and foresight, have chosen an unmarked or deliberately concealed burial to protect her memory, or perhaps to hide from the very conquerors who ended her reign? Speculation naturally follows the trail of historical breadcrumbs. Cleopatra was known not only for her political acumen but for her understanding of religious rites and funerary customs. She was immersed in Egyptian traditions while also embracing elements of Hellenistic culture. Her tomb, then, may not resemble the grand pyramids of earlier pharaohs. Instead, it could reflect a blend of styles, a place designed to honor both her Egyptian heritage and her cosmopolitan sophistication. Could it be hidden underground, a chamber swallowed by sand and time, or perhaps submerged beneath the Mediterranean, where portions of ancient Alexandria have reportedly sunk into the sea? Adding to the intrigue are the artifacts and ruins that survive from the period. Coins bearing Cleopatra's image, Inscriptions on temple walls and fragments of statues all hint at her enduring presence in the city. Yet there is no single clue that points conclusively to her burial site. Researchers examining these relics often speak of a sense of absence, a void that seems almost intentional. Did Cleopatra anticipate that her tomb might one day be sought by archaeologists, historians, and treasure hunters alike? Was she aware that centuries later, her name would be synonymous not only with power and beauty, but with one of history's most enduring mysteries? Some fringe theories push the boundaries further, inviting us to imagine scenarios that challenge conventional understanding. Certain scholars have speculated that Cleopatra might have been buried with Mark Antony, their deaths entwined in both life and legend. Others suggest the possibility of a hidden chamber beneath the sands, shielded by secret passages or protective curses that have kept intruders at bay. A few even theorize that her remains could lie beneath water, swept away by the shifting coastline of Alexandria over the centuries, preserved yet unreachable, waiting silently beneath the waves. While these ideas cannot be confirmed, they illuminate the enduring power of Cleopatra's story, reminding us that some secrets resist disclosure, no matter how persistent our search. The search for her tomb is not simply a quest for bones or treasures. It is an exploration of history itself. Each excavation, each inscription studied, each fragment uncovered provides a glimpse into a civilization that balanced life and death with ritual, symbolism, and intent. And yet, for all that we know, Cleopatra herself remains elusive. She is a figure suspended in time, known to us through writings that are sometimes contradictory, through monuments that have eroded, and through legends that have grown as vivid as history itself. In trying to find her, we are also searching for a deeper understanding of a world that no longer exists, of a culture that revered power, intellect, and the mysteries of the afterlife in equal measure. Perhaps the greatest fascination lies in the questions we cannot answer. How did Cleopatra plan her own end? Did she truly wish to be remembered through grandeur or through subtlety and secrecy? Are we, centuries later, looking in the right place? Or are her remains hidden somewhere entirely unexpected, beyond the reach of modern eyes? Archaeologists continue their careful work, piecing together fragments of a city that has shifted with time, tides, and human ambition. Every stone turned, every chamber explored, brings us closer to the Queen's final resting place. Or, perhaps, reminds us that some secrets are meant to remain unsolved. And so, the mystery endures. Cleopatra's burial has become more than a historical question. It is a meditation on memory, legacy, and the limits of human knowledge. In the ruins of temples, in the sands of ancient streets, in the silent depths of the Mediterranean, one cannot help but wonder, does the Queen still rest in secret, waiting for the day when her story will finally emerge from the shadows? As the shadow of the sun stretches across the sands of Giza, the Great Sphinx emerges from the horizon, an ancient sentinel carved from limestone that has watched over the plateau for more than 4 millennia. Its massive body stretches in quiet repose, the paws outstretched, the face gazing enigmatically toward the east. Visitors today marvel at its scale, yet beneath its weathered surface, beyond what the naked eye can discern, lie secrets that continue to puzzle historians, archaeologists, and explorers alike. The Great Sphinx is not merely a monument. It is a mystery frozen in stone, a riddle etched in the heart of ancient Egypt. The conventional narrative holds that the Sphinx was constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, around 2500 BC, as a guardian figure for his pyramid complex. Its features, though partially eroded, have been interpreted as a stylized representation of the king himself, linking divine authority with earthly rule. Excavations in the surrounding area have uncovered temples, causeways, and remnants of the Sphinx's enclosure, suggesting that it served a ceremonial as well as symbolic purpose. Yet, For all that we know, the question of what lies beneath the Sphinx remains unresolved. Ancient accounts speak of hidden chambers, of voids and tunnels carved within the limestone, but definitive proof has been elusive. Modern technology has added new layers to the mystery. Ground-penetrating radar surveys and seismic imaging have hinted at anomalies beneath the Sphinx, spaces that may or may not be natural fractures in the bedrock. Some researchers argue that these cavities could be burial chambers, secret repositories of knowledge or forgotten ritual spaces. Others caution that the irregularities could simply be the result of erosion or ancient quarrying. The fact remains, beneath the watchful gaze of the Sphinx, the ground conceals whispers of a past that remains largely unexplored. The design and scale of the monument itself invite speculation. Carved from a single ridge of limestone, the Sphinx's proportions are astonishing, yet some geologists have suggested that water erosion patterns on its body predate the period traditionally assigned to Khafra. If true, could the Sphinx be far older than previously believed, a remnant of a civilization lost to time? Was it always intended as a guardian for the Giza Plateau? Or might its purpose have evolved across centuries, accumulating layers of meaning that are now obscured by history? Excavations have also revealed what is commonly referred to as the Sphinx Temple, a structure built with massive limestone blocks, its walls adorned with carved niches and ritual spaces. Some scholars suggest that this temple was used to perform rites honoring the pharaoh's divine essence, connecting the terrestrial with the celestial. Yet even here, uncertainty lingers. Were there chambers hidden beneath the floor? Secret passageways linking the temple to the Sphinx itself? Accounts from antiquity hint at subterranean tunnels, entrances that were deliberately concealed, perhaps to protect sacred knowledge from outsiders or to safeguard treasures long vanished into the sands. Beyond the physical mysteries lies the symbolic enigma. The Sphinx is oriented eastward, toward the rising sun, an alignment that has prompted speculation about astronomical significance. Could its gaze have marked a celestial event, an equinox, or the passage of the stars that guided the pharaohs in life and death? Some researchers draw connections to nearby pyramids and temples, proposing that the plateau as a whole was a meticulously planned landscape, a network of monuments aligned with cosmic cycles. Others remain cautious, acknowledging that while the orientation is deliberate, the full intent may never be fully understood. Fringe theories and speculative interpretations abound, reflecting the human desire to make sense of what defies explanation. Some propose that the Sphinx was a repository of hidden knowledge, a vault of wisdom left by an advanced civilization predating recorded Egyptian history. Others suggest connections to lost cities, subterranean chambers filled with relics, or even portals to realms we cannot yet comprehend. While such ideas cannot be verified, they illustrate the magnetic allure of the Sphinx, a monument that refuses to yield its secrets, inviting wonder, investigation, and reflection. Even the Sphinx's face, though worn by wind and time, has fueled debate. Some scholars argue that the facial features represent Khafra, while others suggest a composite of dynastic rulers or even a symbolic deity. Its expression, enigmatic, calm, yet commanding, seems deliberately designed to provoke contemplation. Standing before it, one cannot help but feel the weight of centuries pressing silently, as though the Sphinx itself guards knowledge that only patience, insight, or perhaps chance might reveal. The Great Sphinx is, in essence, a convergence of certainty and mystery. Its presence anchors the Giza Plateau, yet its internal composition, original purpose, and potential hidden chambers remain subjects of active inquiry. Excavations continue, technologies evolve, and hypotheses are refined. But with every new discovery comes fresh questions. Perhaps the Sphinx was always intended as a challenge to future generations, a silent sentinel ensuring that the past remains alive in our imagination, our curiosity, and our pursuit of understanding. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the plateau, the Sphinx seems to watch over a world still searching for answers. Beneath its paws, within the limestone beneath, what truths might still lie hidden? Are we glimpsing the faint outline of something monumental, or will the Sphinx continue to guard its secrets, elusive and eternal? In contemplating this ancient guardian, we are reminded that some mysteries are not merely puzzles to be solved. They are invitations to wonder, to explore, and to imagine what has yet to be revealed. Beyond the watchful gaze of the Great Sphinx, the Giza Plateau rises in monumental silence, dominated by the colossal pyramids that have long defined Egypt's ancient landscape. At the center of this awe-inspiring ensemble stands the Great Pyramid of Khufu, an architectural feat of unparalleled scale and precision. Each limestone block, meticulously positioned, has withstood millennia of sun, wind, and shifting sands. Visitors who approach its massive facade are struck not only by its grandeur, but by the questions it evokes. How was it built with such precision, using tools and techniques that, in many ways, remain mysterious even today? And hidden within its stone heart, could there be secrets that have yet to see the light of day? For centuries, the internal layout of Khufu's pyramid seemed simple: a descending passage, an ascending corridor, the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and the grand gallery linking them in a carefully constructed plan. Yet in recent years, modern technology has revealed an anomaly, a void, a hidden chamber larger than a football field, lying silent above the grand gallery. Detected through muon radiography, this mysterious space defies explanation. What purpose could such a vast, concealed cavity serve? Was it a structural feature, a clever architectural solution to distribute the immense weight of the stones? Or might it have been designed for a more enigmatic purpose, perhaps a secret chamber reserved for rituals, treasures, or knowledge meant to endure beyond the reach of intruders? The discovery reignites questions that have long accompanied Khufu's pyramid. Ancient records are sparse and cryptic. Herodotus, writing centuries after the pyramid's construction, marveled at its scale, attributing its creation to tens of thousands of laborers working over decades. Yet these historical accounts reveal little about its internal mysteries. Archaeologists today rely on a combination of textual evidence, structural analysis, and high-tech scanning to probe its hidden depths. But even the most advanced tools have not fully unveiled what lies within. The void could be a single, continuous chamber, or perhaps a complex network of corridors and spaces, an enigma concealed within stone for over 4,500 years. Speculation naturally follows, moving from the verified to the imaginative, yet always rooted in observation. Could Khufu, one of Egypt's most ambitious rulers, have designed a space intended to preserve the essence of his reign, hidden away from the eyes of tomb robbers and the chaos of history? Might this chamber have held objects or inscriptions now lost, a repository of knowledge carefully sealed to survive millennia? Some researchers suggest that the pyramid's internal design was aligned with celestial patterns, reflecting the pharaoh's connection to the stars and the afterlife. If so, could the hidden chamber be more than a practical solution? Perhaps a sacred space in harmony with the heavens, its secrets intended for eternity. Beyond architectural and celestial theories lies the realm of mystery that defies conventional reasoning. Ancient civilizations often intertwined function with symbolism. In the case of Khufu's pyramid, some have speculated that the void could be linked to a spiritual or ritualistic purpose, a place where the pharaoh's Ka, the immortal soul, might ascend or descend in its journey through the afterlife. Others suggest that it could contain inscriptions, artifacts, or knowledge deliberately concealed, waiting for a future generation capable of understanding its significance. While these ideas cannot be confirmed, they reflect the enduring fascination the Great Pyramid exerts on those who study it, a fascination that blends science, history, and human imagination. The construction of the pyramid itself continues to provoke awe. Over 2 million limestone and granite blocks, some weighing over 70 tons, were quarried, transported, and assembled with an accuracy that continues to challenge modern engineering. Within this context, the hidden chamber is even more puzzling. Was its placement intentional, a carefully calculated element of the overall design? Or is it a byproduct of structural necessity, a void that formed naturally or was carved to relieve pressure on the chambers below? Each hypothesis, whether pragmatic or speculative, underscores the complexity of the Great Pyramid, revealing it not simply as a tomb, but as a monumental testament to ingenuity, ambition, and perhaps hidden knowledge. Researchers have also considered the psychological impact of hidden spaces in ancient structures. Concealed chambers, sealed corridors, and inaccessible vaults may have been intended to inspire reverence, to symbolize mysteries beyond mortal comprehension. In the case of Khufu's pyramid, the newly discovered void adds an additional layer to this narrative. For millennia, the pyramid has stood as an emblem of permanence and power. Yet, even now, it keeps its secrets, a silent reminder that the ancient world often blended practical engineering with symbolic depth, creating structures that invite questions rather than answers. Standing before the Great Pyramid today, one is struck by both its magnitude and its elusiveness. Visitors can walk its passages, measure its stones, and study its design, yet the void above the Grand Gallery remains inaccessible, a reminder that some mysteries are designed to endure. What might be found if this chamber could be explored fully? Could it hold insights into the life and ambitions of Khufu, clues to rituals long forgotten, or even elements of knowledge that connect with the broader mysteries of Egypt's pharaohs? The hidden chamber of Khufu, like the Sphinx and Cleopatra's Unfound tomb, represents a convergence of certainty and uncertainty. We can measure, scan, and theorize, yet we cannot yet fully reveal its purpose or contents. It stands as a testament to the depth of human curiosity and the endurance of ancient mysteries, inviting each generation to look closer, to question, and to imagine. In the silent stone above the Grand Gallery, what waits, patient and unyielding? Is it a simple structural necessity, or a carefully concealed secret of a civilization whose wisdom continues to echo across the millennia? The answers remain elusive, suspended somewhere between history, architecture, and the unknown, leaving us to wonder what still lies hidden, just out of reach. As we leave the shadowed corridors of the Great Pyramid, our journey through Egypt's ancient secrets takes us to the edge of the Fayum oasis, where the desert meets fertile land and the Nile's waters ripple quietly beneath the sun. Here, long vanished beneath centuries of sand and soil, once stood a structure that scholars and travelers alike have described as one of the most extraordinary monuments of ancient Egypt, the Labyrinth of Amenemhat III. Contemporary accounts, most notably by Herodotus and later Strabo, speak of it as a sprawling complex of unparalleled scale, 12 courts, countless chambers, and a network of passageways so intricate that it defied comprehension. Some called it a palace, others a temple, yet all agreed on its grandeur, its architectural audacity, and, most intriguingly, its mystery. Constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Amenemhat III, around 1850 BC, the labyrinth is believed to have served both administrative and ceremonial purposes. Herodotus wrote of rooms above and rooms below, arranged in every possible direction, decorated with hieroglyphs and statues of gods and kings, a claim that hints at both the sophistication of Middle Kingdom architecture and the complexity of Egyptian political and religious life. Yet despite its fame in ancient texts, the physical labyrinth has largely disappeared. By the time explorers and archaeologists reached the Fayum in the 19th and 20th centuries, only fragments of stone remained, scattered amidst the landscape. Its exact layout, dimensions, and contents continue to elude definitive description. Archaeological surveys have identified potential remnants, yet the labyrinth refuses to reveal itself fully. Some researchers suggest that the structure was partially dismantled over centuries, its stones repurposed for other constructions, leaving only faint impressions of walls and foundations beneath the shifting sands. Others speculate that underground chambers, now buried or collapsed, might still survive, concealing inscriptions, ceremonial objects, or even royal treasures long lost to history. Could this have been Amenemhat's ultimate statement of power, a monument designed to endure not just as a palace or tomb, but as a puzzle, a challenge for future generations to decipher? The labyrinth's enigmatic nature is amplified by conflicting historical accounts. While Herodotus praised its majesty, later Greek and Roman writers were perplexed by its sheer scale and the apparent contradictions in its layout. Some claimed there were 12 courts, others more. Some described underground galleries, others suggested elaborate temples and halls open to the sky. Did these inconsistencies arise from exaggeration, or could they hint at features that remain hidden to this day, chambers inaccessible to early visitors, sealed deliberately to protect the sanctity of the space? Modern investigations have attempted to reconcile these ancient descriptions with what remains on the ground. Satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and archaeological excavations have hinted at subsurface anomalies, depressions in the earth that might mark the outline of long-buried corridors or chambers. Yet the labyrinth continues to resist confirmation. Could these anomalies be remnants of the fabled structure, or natural geological formations misinterpreted as human construction? Every excavation offers clues, but none has yet produced a complete map of Amenemhat's labyrinth, leaving it suspended between history and legend. Speculation inevitably extends to the purpose of such a monumental undertaking. Was it designed primarily as a palace for the pharaoh and his court, a sprawling administrative center reflecting the power of Egypt's Middle Kingdom? Or was it intended as a ceremonial or religious complex, a terrestrial reflection of the divine order, echoing the patterns of the heavens? Some theories suggest that the labyrinth's design might have incorporated symbolic pathways, guiding initiates or priests through ritualized journeys, each chamber representing stages of life, death, and rebirth. Could this complex have functioned as a physical and spiritual maze, a space where authority, theology, and cosmic symbolism converged? The labyrinth's mysteries are heightened by the fragments that survive. Scattered blocks, partial walls, and inscriptions offer tantalizing hints, yet none can reconstruct the full scale or intent of the original structure. Statues once said to line the halls, now lost, may have depicted deities, kings, or mythological scenes, suggesting that the labyrinth was not merely functional, but also a narrative space, a chronicle carved in stone, telling the story of Egypt, its rulers, and its gods. How much of this narrative has been lost to time, and how much might still lie buried, waiting to be uncovered beneath layers of sand and sediment? Beyond the practical and symbolic, there are questions that invite broader reflection. Why would Amenemhat III invest in such an elaborate complex, only to see it disappear from collective memory so completely? Was it the result of deliberate destruction, natural decay, or the slow erasure of time, leaving only the faintest traces of grandeur? Could some chambers, perhaps holding inscriptions, ceremonial objects, or sacred texts, remain sealed beneath the surface, inaccessible to archaeologists even today? The labyrinth's very existence reminds us of the fragility of memory and the ease with which even monumental achievements can fade from view, leaving only whispers in ancient texts and hints beneath the earth. Standing at the edge of the Fayum, looking over the plains where the labyrinth once sprawled, one cannot help but feel the weight of absence. The stones may be gone, the walls collapsed, yet the imagination persists, drawing us into the shadows of a structure that challenged human ingenuity and ambition. In contemplating the labyrinth, we confront both the known and the unknowable, the fragments preserved by time and the vast unknown hidden beneath the sands. The lost labyrinth of Amenemhat III, like the hidden chamber of Khufu or the unfound tomb of Cleopatra, offers a window into a world that resists simple understanding. It is a testament to the ambition, artistry, and vision of ancient Egypt, but also a reminder that some creations, no matter how monumental, remain partially beyond our grasp. What lies beneath the Fayum today? Could some sections of Amenemhat's labyrinth still endure, silent and secret, waiting for the patient and persistent to uncover their hidden chambers? Or has time claimed the last of its mysteries, leaving only the stories of those who walked its halls long ago? From the ruins of grand temples and the silent sands of the Fayum, our exploration moves toward the storied city of Amarna, a once thriving capital founded by Pharaoh Akhenaten in the 14th century BC. Here, amid the remains of sun-bleached walls and the scattered fragments of monumental statues, one figure continues to captivate the imagination of historians, archaeologists, and the public alike: Queen Nefertiti. Her name evokes elegance, intelligence, and power, immortalized in the iconic limestone bust that has traveled the world. Yet, for all the fascination she inspires, the fate of Nefertiti remains one of ancient Egypt's most enduring enigmas. What became of the queen whose visage has endured so vividly in art, while her story in life seems to have vanished into shadow? Nefertiti rose to prominence alongside Akhenaten during a period of profound religious and cultural transformation. Together, they championed the worship of Aten, the sun disk, reshaping temples, rituals, and the very center of Egyptian political and spiritual life. Nefertiti's presence was remarkable. She is depicted performing ceremonies alongside the pharaoh, wielding authority unusual for queens of the time. Yet, after roughly a decade of prominence, records of Nefertiti abruptly fade. Official inscriptions stop mentioning her, and the reasons for her disappearance are shrouded in mystery. Did she die? Was she exiled? Or could she have ascended to a role even more significant than previously understood, hidden in plain sight within the annals of Egyptian history? Archaeologists have scoured Amarna and other sites for clues. Tombs, inscriptions, and fragments of monuments have been examined for signs of Nefertiti's final resting place, yet none have yielded conclusive evidence. Some researchers propose that she may have taken on a co-regency with Akhenaten, ruling under a different name, perhaps even as Pharaoh Neferuaten, before disappearing from historical records entirely. Others suggest she may have been buried in a tomb lost to time, destroyed by later dynasties seeking to erase the memory of the Amarna period. Each theory holds tantalizing possibilities, yet the queen's fate remains elusive, a puzzle partially obscured by centuries of deliberate alteration, political upheaval, and natural decay. The question of Nefertiti's disappearance is further complicated by the upheavals following Akhenaten's reign. When Tutankhamun restored the old religious order, many traces of the Amarna period were systematically erased. Temples were dismantled, inscriptions chiseled away, and statues defaced or relocated. If Nefertiti's tomb existed in the vicinity of Amarna, it is possible it was destroyed or hidden deliberately to sever the memory of Aten worship from history. Yet this very erasure has given rise to speculation. Could her burial site still exist, concealed beneath debris, obscured by centuries of shifting sands, or misidentified among other tombs that have yet to be fully explored? Some scholars have ventured to link Nefertiti with iconic sites like the Valley of the Kings, suggesting that her tomb may have been relocated or disguised to protect her remains from desecration. Evidence supporting this is circumstantial. Fragments of inscriptions, depictions in tombs of officials, and architectural anomalies that hint at the presence of a high-ranking female figure. Other researchers have explored more unconventional possibilities, speculating that she may have assumed another identity entirely, continuing her influence under a different title. These theories, while unproven, highlight the lengths to which scholars are willing to go to reconstruct a narrative erased by time, politics, and the sands of history. Adding to the intrigue is the queen's famed beauty and status, immortalized in sculptures and reliefs that emphasize her distinctive features. Elongated neck, graceful features, and the tall, flat-topped crown that has become emblematic of her image. Could the very fame of her visage have contributed to the mystery of her disappearance, inspiring later generations to search for a tomb or records that may have never existed in the traditional sense? Might the queen herself have been involved in concealing her burial place, anticipating the political turbulence that would follow Akhenaten's death? In a civilization so deliberate in ritual and design, such a possibility cannot be dismissed entirely. Modern technology has opened new avenues of investigation. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, and careful excavation have revealed potential burial sites within Amarna and surrounding areas, yet none have yielded definitive proof of Nefertiti's final resting place. Fragments of tombs and remnants of walls suggest structures that were never completed or were deliberately sealed, hinting at a story interrupted, abandoned, or hidden. Could one of these sites conceal a chamber untouched for over 3,000 years, silently holding the queen's remains and artifacts, waiting for discovery? The disappearance of Nefertiti also raises broader questions about memory, power, and legacy. Here was a queen whose influence was undeniable, yet her presence was systematically obscured after a political and religious revolution. Her story reminds us that history is not always a straightforward record of events. It is shaped by those who survive, by those who write, and by the choices of rulers to preserve or erase the past. In Nefertiti's case, the absence of evidence is as compelling as any monument, an invitation to explore what may lie beyond what has been recorded, and to wonder at the human desire to understand, preserve, and uncover. Standing amidst the ruins of Amarna, one can almost imagine the queen herself walking these streets, her steps echoing through halls that no longer exist, her authority both visible and hidden, her legacy suspended between history and myth. The mystery of her disappearance endures, a silent challenge to archaeologists, historians, and dreamers alike. Was she buried in an undiscovered tomb nearby? Did she rule under a new identity? Or has time claimed her story, leaving only fragments of stone, inscriptions, and imagination as testimony to a life that once commanded power and fascination? Nefertiti's disappearance, like the hidden chamber of Khufu or the lost labyrinth of Amenemhat III, is a reminder that even in the midst of civilization's grandeur, some truths remain just beyond our reach. It is a story that asks us to pause, to consider the passage of time, and to wonder at the spaces between what is known and what remains concealed. In the sands and ruins of Amarna, what secrets might still endure, waiting silently for those willing to search? As we leave the sun-baked ruins of Amarna and trace the paths of pharaohs long gone, our journey takes us beyond stone and sand into the realm of the mind, the written word, and the sacred knowledge of ancient Egypt. Among the most enduring mysteries of this civilization is the legend of the secret books of Thoth, a collection of texts said to contain wisdom so profound that it could grant insight into the mysteries of the cosmos, the natural world, and the human soul. To imagine them is to envision a library unlike any other, filled with hieroglyphs that shimmer with hidden meaning, encoded in symbols designed to preserve knowledge across millennia. But where, if anywhere, might such a collection reside, and how much of it is lost to time? Thoth, the ibis-headed deity of wisdom, writing, and the lunar calendar, was venerated as the patron of scribes and the keeper of knowledge. Ancient Egyptians believed that he recorded the deeds of gods and men alike, mediating between mortal understanding and divine truth. References to his secret books appear in Egyptian texts and later Hellenistic writings, describing works that contained spells, formulas, and knowledge that could illuminate the universe itself. Some accounts speak of these texts as guiding the pharaohs, granting them insight into life, death, and eternity. Others suggest they held instructions for communicating with the divine or unlocking abilities of the mind that remain incomprehensible to modern understanding. Yet for all their supposed power, no verified copy of the secret books of Thoth has ever been found. Scholars debate whether they were ever real physical objects, or if they existed more as allegorical constructs, symbols of ultimate knowledge rather than manuscripts to be read. Herodotus, writing centuries later, mentions libraries of papyrus in temples, but never explicitly confirms the existence of Thoth's secret volumes. Could the texts have been intentionally hidden, buried alongside kings and queens, or encoded in ways meant to prevent the uninitiated from understanding them? Or were they never meant to survive at all, their wisdom transmitted orally and preserved only in fragments scattered across rituals, inscriptions, and myths? Stories of the books are steeped in both reverence and caution. Egyptian tradition holds that only those deemed worthy, or those initiated into the highest ranks of priesthood, could approach Thoth's wisdom without risk. Some myths speak of the books as granting the reader mastery over time, the elements, and even the forces of life and death. Others warn that knowledge beyond certain limits could drive mortals to madness, a reminder that the pursuit of wisdom was balanced by ethical and spiritual responsibility. Were these warnings symbolic, intended to preserve societal order, or do they hint at truths that ancient Egyptians understood, but we have lost? The physical remnants of Egyptian knowledge, papyrus scrolls, temple inscriptions, tomb writings, offer tantalizing hints. Texts like the pyramid texts, the coffin texts, and the Book of the Dead reveal a sophisticated understanding of the afterlife, the cosmos, and ritual practice. Could these be fragments of a larger, more complete body of work, perhaps once codified in the secret books of Thoth? Some researchers suggest that the greatest wisdom of the civilization was never fully recorded in public, kept instead in hidden archives beneath temples, in secret chambers, or within private collections of the high priests. The thought that there might exist a cache of texts beyond the reach of modern archaeology evokes both awe and a quiet unease. Speculation extends further. Some scholars and enthusiasts have proposed that the knowledge contained in the secret books of Thoth may have influenced not only Egyptian civilization, but other cultures as well. Could Greek philosophy, later Hermetic traditions, or even ancient scientific insights have roots in teachings preserved and passed along by Thoth's followers? While these connections remain conjectural, they underscore the timeless allure of the idea that a body of knowledge existed, carefully safeguarded, partially lost, and perhaps waiting for the day it could be rediscovered. The nature of secrecy itself is central to the mystery. In a civilization as meticulous as ancient Egypt, knowledge was power, and power was guarded. Temples were designed not only for worship, but for the storage and concealment of information. Hidden chambers, crypts, and false walls were used to protect objects and texts alike. Could the secret books of Thoth have been stored in such a way, their exact location now unknown, hidden beneath layers of sand, stone, and centuries of history? Or might the texts exist in symbolic form, embedded in architecture, statues, or hieroglyphic sequences, readable only by those who understand the code left by the scribes? Even the legends themselves evoke a kind of presence. Tales of kings consulting Thoth, of scribes receiving visions, and of wisdom that transcended the mortal realm, suggest a civilization deeply invested in the pursuit of understanding, yet cautious about its use. The secret books, real or allegorical, represent a threshold between the known and the unknowable, a space where human curiosity meets the divine. They remind us that knowledge is not only power but responsibility, and that some truths may have been deliberately obscured to endure safely through the ages. As we contemplate the notion of these lost texts, the question arises: what might they contain if they were found? Would we gain insights into mathematics, medicine, astronomy, or philosophy far beyond what survives in extant records? Or might their secrets be subtler, revealing spiritual principles and practices that guided the lives of pharaohs, priests, and initiates? The pursuit of the secret books of Thoth is, in essence, a pursuit of understanding itself, an exploration not only of what the ancient Egyptians knew, but of what humanity has sought to know for millennia. The legend of Thoth's books persists because it speaks to an enduring tension between what is known and what is hidden, between history and imagination, between the mortal and the divine. Like the hidden chamber of Khufu, the lost labyrinth of Amenemhat III, and the disappearance of Nefertiti, the secret books of Thoth invite us to wonder. What truths have been lost to time, buried beneath sands, encoded in stone, or scattered across civilizations? And might some of these truths still endure, waiting for a mind capable of unlocking them, silent and patient in the shadows of history? From the whispered legends of Thoth's wisdom, our journey brings us back to the mortal realm, to the tombs and treasures of Egypt's Valley of the Kings. Among them lies the name that has become synonymous with both opulence and enigma: Tutankhamun. The boy king, ascending the throne at the tender age of 9, ruled during a time of upheaval, religious reform, and courtly intrigue. His tomb, discovered nearly intact by Howard Carter in 1922, revealed treasures beyond imagination: gold masks, jewel-encrusted pectorals, ceremonial chariots, and intricately carved statuary. Yet, despite the splendor of his final resting place, the circumstances of Tutankhamun's death remain shrouded in mystery. Why did a young pharaoh, seemingly at the height of life, die suddenly at around 18 or 19 years of age? For decades, scholars have sought answers. Early theories proposed disease, accidents, or even foul play. CT scans of the mummy suggest complex injuries: a fractured skull, evidence of infection, and signs of malarial parasites. Some researchers have argued that these could indicate an accidental fall or a riding accident, while others point to the possibility of poisoning or political intrigue, a sudden end orchestrated within the palace walls. Yet despite advanced forensic technology, no definitive explanation has emerged. Tutankhamun's death, like so much of Egypt's history, exists at the intersection of fact and conjecture. The political climate of Tutankhamun's reign adds further intrigue. He inherited a kingdom emerging from the radical religious reforms of his probable father or brother, Akhenaten. The return to traditional deities, the restoration of temples, and the purging of Atenist influence created tension among priests, nobles, and courtiers. Could Tutankhamun's sudden demise have been the result of a conspiracy, a palace intrigue designed to remove a young ruler before he could assert his authority? Or was it the tragic consequence of the immense pressures placed upon a child tasked with navigating the treacherous waters of power and religion? Archaeological evidence provides tantalizing, yet incomplete, clues. His mummy bears traces of bone malformations and a possible clubfoot, suggesting that the king may have suffered from genetic complications. Could these conditions have contributed to an accident, a weakened immune system, or sudden health crisis? Yet, even with this knowledge, the question remains: why the sudden timing? Was it purely chance, or was something more deliberate at play, hidden within the labyrinthine politics of the 18th dynasty? Speculation also extends to the rituals surrounding his death and burial. Tutankhamun's tomb is unusually small for a pharaoh of his stature, leading some researchers to propose that it was prepared hastily. Might this indicate that his death was unexpected, catching court officials unprepared for the customary grandeur of a royal interment? Alternatively, could the size and design reflect a symbolic choice, a carefully orchestrated path intended to secure his journey into the afterlife, despite the abruptness of his passing? Each artifact, each placement within the tomb seems to speak with intention, yet the true meaning remains tantalizingly out of reach. Forensic examinations have also revealed traces of malaria and bone necrosis, suggesting Tutankhamun may have suffered from both illness and infection simultaneously. Some scholars argue that this combination could have led to a rapid decline in health, a death that, while tragic, was natural. Yet questions linger. Why would a young pharaoh, with access to the most advanced care of the time, succumb so quickly? Could there have been additional factors, environmental, genetic, or even supernatural beliefs held by the court, that influenced both his life and death? Beyond science, the cultural and symbolic dimensions of his demise invite reflection. Tutankhamun's burial, replete with protective spells and artifacts, speaks to the Egyptian preoccupation with ensuring safe passage to the afterlife. The treasures within the tomb, from the gilded death mask to the miniature figurines, suggest a profound belief in safeguarding the king's essence. Could the suddenness of his death have heightened the need for these protections, turning the tomb itself into a testament to a life cut short and a soul prepared for eternity? The mystery deepens when considering the succession that followed. Tutankhamun's death left the throne vacant, leading to the ascension of Ai, a senior courtier and possibly a relative by marriage. The transition was swift, raising questions about whether the circumstances of Tutankhamun's demise were known, anticipated, or exploited by those seeking power. Was his death a tragic accident, a culmination of illness and misfortune, or was it entwined with the hidden machinations of the palace, concealed by the sands of history? Standing before the artifacts, walking the corridors of his tomb, even through photographs and reconstructions, one senses both presence and absence. Tutankhamun's life was brief, yet his legacy endures with extraordinary intensity, a golden echo across time. Yet, for all we have learned from his tomb, from his mummy, and from the study of his era, the precise cause and circumstances of his death remain elusive. It is a mystery layered with history, science, and human intrigue, one that reflects the complexity of life in ancient Egypt and the fragile nature of youth, power, and mortality. Tutankhamun's sudden death, like the hidden chamber of Khufu, the labyrinth of Amenemhat III, and the disappearance of Nefertiti, reminds us that even the most celebrated figures of history are not fully known. The artifacts, the inscriptions, the medical scans, they all tell part of the story, yet some truths remain concealed. In the shadows of the Valley of the Kings, amidst treasures untouched by time, one cannot help but wonder, was Tutankhamun's death merely a tragic accident, or does it hide secrets still buried in the sands, waiting for the patient, the observant, and the curious to uncover? From the gilded treasures of Tutankhamun's tomb and the secrets of a life cut tragically short, our exploration moves forward into a darker, more turbulent chapter of Egyptian history, the assassination of Pharaoh Ramses III. His reign, beginning in 1186 BC, marked a period of political upheaval and external threats, yet for much of his life, Ramses III projected the authority of a ruler secure in his power. His mortuary temple at Medinet Habu stands as a testament to his achievements. Colossal statues, carved reliefs of victorious battles against invading sea peoples, and inscriptions designed to immortalize a pharaoh who seemed invincible. But even the mightiest ruler is not immune to the shadows within his own palace. For centuries, the sudden and violent nature of Ramses III's death has intrigued historians and forensic scientists alike. Ancient documents, most notably the judicial papyrus of Turin, describe a conspiracy within the royal court, a harem plot orchestrated by one of his secondary wives and her supporters, aiming to place her son on the throne. These texts detail accusations, interrogations, and punishments, revealing a palace fraught with intrigue, jealousy, and ambition. Yet, for all their specificity, they leave gaps, prompting questions that endure to this day. How exactly was Ramses III killed, and who truly orchestrated the act? Modern forensic investigations have added new depth to the story. Examination of Ramses III's mummy reveals a deep, fatal wound across his throat, indicating that his death was both violent and deliberate. This evidence confirms what the ancient texts only hinted at, that the pharaoh's life ended abruptly at the hands of those close to him. Yet the precise circumstances, whether the wound was inflicted in a sudden attack, part of a broader coup, or the culmination of an elaborate conspiracy, remain uncertain. Each discovery seems to raise new questions rather than answer the old ones. The motivations behind the assassination are complex and layered. Political ambition, the desire for succession, and courtly rivalries all played a role, yet they unfolded within the context of a fragile empire. Ramses III faced not only internal dissent, but external pressures from invaders along the Nile Delta and rebellions within distant provinces. Could his sudden death have been timed to coincide with a moment of vulnerability, or was it a desperate act by a faction within the palace seeking control before the pharaoh could respond? The interplay between political strategy and personal ambition is difficult to disentangle, leaving historians to speculate about the forces that converged in the royal harem. The judicial papyrus describes the conspiracy in meticulous detail, naming conspirators, outlining plots, and even recording the punishments imposed on those involved. Yet the documents do not explicitly describe the pharaoh's death, leaving a critical gap in the narrative. Was Ramses III's assassination the culmination of a planned coup, or was it an opportunistic act carried out in haste? Could there have been accomplices whose names were never recorded, their involvement erased from the official account? These uncertainties invite us to imagine the palace as a space of tension and danger, where loyalty and betrayal existed in constant tension. Ramses III's burial itself offers hints of both honor and concealment. His tomb in the Valley of the Kings, like those of his predecessors, was designed to secure his journey into the afterlife. Yet the very fact of his violent death may have influenced the rituals and arrangements surrounding his interment. Were additional protections or spells invoked to safeguard his soul from enemies both earthly and spiritual? Did the suddenness of his death accelerate the preparations, altering the usual course of royal funerary practice? The material remnants of his tomb hint at standard tradition, yet they cannot convey the chaos or secrecy that may have surrounded his final hours. Speculation also extends to the broader implications of Ramses III's demise. His death precipitated a period of instability in the Egyptian court, contributing to challenges in succession and governance. The very fact that a pharaoh, so powerful in life, could be assassinated by those closest to him underscores the vulnerability of power, even in an empire renowned for its stability. Could the assassination have been a warning, a calculated demonstration of political authority by factions within the palace? Or was it a tragic convergence of ambition, opportunity, and miscalculation, resulting in a violent end to a reign that seemed otherwise secure? The forensic evidence and ancient texts together form a puzzle whose pieces never fully align. The wound in Ramses III's throat, the recorded conspiracy, the subsequent punishments, all provide fragments of truth, yet the full story remains elusive. Could there have been ritual elements involved in the assassination, intended to negate the pharaoh's power in life and death? Were there accomplices who went undetected or strategies concealed by time and record-keeping? Each detail invites further inquiry, blending the realms of history, science, and speculation. Standing before the statues of Ramses III at Medinet Habu, one can almost feel the duality of his life, a ruler projected as invincible, yet vulnerable to betrayal within his own palace walls. His assassination serves as a stark reminder that even the most powerful figures are not beyond danger, that human ambition and intrigue can transcend the seeming permanence of stone and legacy. It is a mystery that continues to captivate scholars, historians, and all who are drawn to the shadowed corridors of Egyptian history. Ramses III's assassination, like Tutankhamun's sudden death, the disappearance of Nefertiti, and the hidden chambers of Khufu, demonstrates that even in the grandest civilizations, mortality, ambition, and secrecy leave indelible marks. The story of his final moments, partially preserved in papyri and partially revealed in mummified remains, invites us to consider the forces that shape history, both visible and hidden. In the quiet halls of Medinet Habu and the shadowed tomb in the Valley of the Kings, one cannot help but ask, who orchestrated the pharaoh's demise, and what secrets remain buried with him, waiting to be discovered in the sands of time? From the shadows of palace intrigue and the violent death of Ramses III, we now descend into the winding corridors of the Valley of the Kings, where one of Egypt's most enigmatic tombs waits silently beneath layers of stone and sand. Tomb Khufu 55, modest in size yet rich in mystery, holds secrets that have puzzled archaeologists, historians, and forensic experts for over a century. Discovered in 1907 by Edward R. Ayrton under the supervision of Theodore Davis, this small tomb seemed at first unremarkable, but what lay within would ignite debates that continue to this day. A single, mummified body, accompanied by a collection of artifacts that suggested both royal stature and profound ambiguity. The tomb contained fragments of gilded furniture, a gilded shrine, ritual vessels, and ushabti figurines, all typical of high-status burials. Yet the identification of the occupant proved elusive. Some features of the mummy suggested a male in his mid-20s or 30s, but the age, sex, and identity remained uncertain for decades. Inscriptions on associated objects hinted at connections to Akhenaten, the revolutionary pharaoh of Amarna, and possibly Saqqara, a shadowy figure whose reign is scarcely recorded. Could this tomb, with its mixture of artifacts and anomalous inscriptions, belong to a ruler who lived and died in a time of political and religious upheaval? Or was it a resting place hastily assembled, its purpose distorted over centuries? Khufu 55's layout and contents provide few clear answers. Unlike the grand tombs of Tutankhamun or Ramses II, its chambers are relatively simple, with a single burial room containing the displaced body and funerary equipment. Some scholars have suggested that the tomb was originally part of a larger complex, perhaps intended for Akhenaten himself or a member of his immediate family, but abandoned, repurposed, or altered in haste following the pharaoh's death and the subsequent return to traditional religious practices. The presence of mixed-era artifacts, including items bearing the names of both Akhenaten and Tutankhamun, complicates identification. Was this a deliberate concealment, an act of respect, or a chaotic reburial in response to political and religious transition? Scientific analysis has provided tantalizing clues, yet also deepened the mystery. Examination of the mummy through X-rays, CT scans, and DNA testing has suggested connections to the Amarna lineage, potentially identifying the occupant as a close relative of Tutankhamun, perhaps even Akhenaten himself or Smenkhkare. Yet the evidence is far from conclusive. Conflicting interpretations of age, sex, and familial relationships have fueled debate, highlighting the difficulty of reconstructing a life from fragmented remains. The tomb seems designed to defy certainty, offering hints without providing closure, as if the sands of history were determined to keep this individual's identity hidden. The political and religious climate of the period adds another layer to the enigma. Akhenaten's radical reforms, centered on the worship of Aten and the relocation of the capital to Amarna, generated resistance among the priesthood and nobility. Could KV-55 reflect the turbulence of this era, a hurried reburial designed to obscure a politically inconvenient death or conceal the lineage of a controversial ruler? Some scholars propose that Smenkhkare, a pharaoh whose reign was brief and shadowed, may have been buried here as part of an effort to erase his memory from history while preserving royal continuity. Others argue that the tomb may have functioned as a temporary holding place, the body eventually intended to be moved but never relocated due to dynastic turmoil. Artifacts from the tomb deepen the intrigue. A gilded shrine, small yet intricately decorated, bears inscriptions associated with Akhenaten. Funerary objects and Ushabti figurines reference both Atenist and traditional deities, suggesting a fusion of religious symbolism. This mixture raises compelling questions. Was the tomb prepared for one individual and then repurposed? Were the objects deliberately intermingled to obscure identity, or do they reflect transitional religious practices during a period of profound upheaval? Each artifact, from the smallest jar to the gilded chest, offers a fragment of a story that is tantalizingly incomplete. The debates surrounding KV-55 extend beyond archaeology into the realm of speculation and theory. Could this tomb contain a figure whose life and death were deliberately erased from official records? Or is it the final resting place of a young ruler who died unexpectedly, forcing the royal court to improvise? The ambiguity of KV-55 challenges modern assumptions about power, succession, and the preservation of memory in ancient Egypt. Unlike the celebrated tombs of well-documented pharaohs, KV-55 offers no comforting clarity, only shadows, fragments, and the lingering question of identity. Standing before the tomb, one cannot ignore the tension between presence and absence. The mummy, shrouded for millennia, offers glimpses of a life connected to the most revolutionary and controversial chapter in Egyptian history. The surrounding artifacts, inscriptions, and architectural features point to both prominence and concealment, to ritual significance and political strategy. Yet, all of these elements resist easy interpretation, leaving the tomb suspended between historical record and enigma. The mystery of KV-55, like the hidden chambers of Khufu, the lost labyrinth of Amenemhat III, the disappearance of Nefertiti, and the sudden deaths of Tutankhamun and Ramses III, reminds us that history is rarely complete. The tomb holds fragments of stories, whispers of power, and shadows of ambition that continue to challenge scholars and captivate the imagination. What truths remain concealed beneath the dust and stone? Whose life lies within the walls of KV-55? And what secrets of Egypt's turbulent Amarna period might still be waiting to be revealed? From the shadowed corridors of the Valley of the Kings and the mysteries of KV-55, our journey now turns to the vast necropolis of Saqqara, a landscape of tombs and temples stretching across the desert, where time itself seems to have slowed. Among these silent monuments lies a discovery that has both astonished and puzzled archaeologists. The tomb of an unknown queen, a figure whose name has been lost to history, yet whose presence speaks to the grandeur and complexity of ancient Egypt. Hidden beneath layers of sand and centuries of neglect, her burial chamber offers a glimpse into a life once entwined with power, ritual, and perhaps secrets that have yet to be understood. The tomb, discovered in recent years, is a testament to craftsmanship and status. Stone walls are adorned with vivid reliefs depicting offerings, deities, and ritual ceremonies, while the chamber itself holds a collection of objects both mundane and extraordinary. Canopic jars, ceremonial vessels, intricately carved statuettes, and fragments of jewelry that hint at wealth and prestige. Yet, unlike other tombs of known queens, inscriptions bearing her name or titles are conspicuously absent, leaving scholars to puzzle over her identity. Could she have been a queen consort, whose memory was deliberately obscured? Or a figure of political importance, whose legacy was erased in the shifting tides of dynastic power? Saqqara, with its layers of history spanning centuries, offers both context and enigma. As the necropolis for Memphis, the capital of ancient Egypt for much of the Old and Middle Kingdoms, it housed the tombs of pharaohs, nobles, and priestesses. The discovery of this queen's tomb within such a prestigious landscape suggests she was far from ordinary. Yet the absence of a name raises tantalizing questions. Was her identity deliberately concealed, perhaps due to political intrigue, or lost through the natural erosion of time and neglect? The tomb's architecture and funerary equipment suggest careful planning, indicating that her death was significant enough to warrant elaborate preparations, yet mysterious enough to leave a gap in historical record. Scholars have noted unusual features in the tomb's design. Certain chambers appear to have been constructed hastily or altered after the initial plan, while some inscriptions seem to have been deliberately erased or left incomplete. Could this reflect a deliberate attempt to obscure the queen's identity, to protect her memory from rivals, or to prevent posthumous interference in the line of succession? Alternatively, might these anomalies reveal a society in transition, where funerary practices adapted rapidly to political or religious changes? Each architectural choice, each carved figure, seems to offer clues while maintaining a deliberate silence. Artifacts from the tomb deepen the intrigue. Ceremonial objects, including finely carved alabaster vessels and amulets shaped in the likeness of gods, hint at rituals intended to secure a safe passage to the afterlife. Yet their arrangement and style do not match exactly with known conventions for queens of her period, suggesting either regional variations, personal preference, or perhaps a deliberately unique burial. Could this queen have held influence beyond her role as consort, perhaps as a priestess, advisor, or ruler in her own right, whose contributions were never officially recognized? Or does the uniqueness of her tomb reflect a period of instability, when royal burials were hastily arranged or deliberately altered to obscure lineage? The absence of her name has invited speculation. Some archaeologists propose that she may have been linked to a lesser-known pharaoh, a daughter of a previous ruler, or even a powerful noblewoman elevated to royal status. Others suggest that her identity may have been intentionally erased following political upheaval, a practice not uncommon in ancient Egypt, where rivals, fallen dynasties, and controversial figures were sometimes removed from official record. The mystery is compounded by the tomb's proximity to other royal burials, suggesting a deliberate placement within the necropolis hierarchy, yet without the clarity of inscriptions to confirm her identity. Modern technology has offered glimpses into her story, yet has also raised further questions. Imaging techniques, analysis of burial goods, and studies of skeletal remains provide clues about her age, health, and possible family connections. Yet, despite these advances, certainty remains elusive. The Queen's life, her role, and the reasons for her anonymity continue to defy complete understanding. What decisions or events led to her burial in this way, and what might have motivated the deliberate absence of her name from history? Each scientific discovery seems to illuminate only part of the narrative, leaving the rest in shadow. The unknown queen of Saqqara, like the hidden chamber of Khufu, the lost labyrinth of Amenemhat III, and the mysterious occupants of Khufu 55, challenges our understanding of the past. Her tomb reminds us that even in civilizations renowned for their meticulous record-keeping, some stories are lost, concealed, or deliberately obscured. It speaks to the impermanence of memory and the fragility of identity, even for those closest to power. Who was she, and what influence did she wield in life? Was she a queen whose name was erased, a ruler in her own right, or a figure caught in the cross-currents of dynastic ambition? As we stand among the sands and stone of Saqqara, gazing upon the reliefs, the vessels, and the silent sarcophagus, the unknown queen seems to speak across the millennia. She invites us to imagine her life, to consider the forces that shaped her world, and to wonder at the mysteries that remain hidden beneath the desert. In the quiet corridors of her tomb, surrounded by artifacts that have survived the erosion of time, one cannot help but ask, who truly was this queen, and what secrets does her tomb still hold, waiting silently to be discovered? From the enigmatic tombs of Saqqara and the silent corridors of forgotten queens, we now turn to a figure whose influence extends far beyond his own era. Imhotep, the architect, physician, and sage whose genius shaped the very foundation of ancient Egyptian civilization. Revered as the mind behind the step pyramid of Djoser, Imhotep's name has survived millennia, etched in history as a master of architecture, medicine, and knowledge. Yet, for all his renown, the location of his final resting place remains unknown, a mystery that has fascinated scholars, archaeologists, and enthusiasts alike. Where, in the endless sands of Egypt, might the tomb of the man who was later deified lie? Saqqara, the vast necropolis south of Memphis, offers the first clues. It is here, amid the labyrinthine network of tombs and mortuary temples, that Imhotep lived and worked, advising pharaohs and shaping monumental architecture. Contemporary records celebrate his intellect and contributions, yet curiously, none explicitly record his burial. Ancient texts suggest that he was granted honors normally reserved for royalty, including veneration after death, but the physical evidence of his tomb has eluded discovery. Could it have been deliberately concealed, lost to time, or destroyed by natural forces, leaving only traces in myth and legend? Speculation about Imhotep's tomb is entwined with his posthumous deification. Centuries after his death, he was worshipped as a god of medicine and wisdom, his cult enduring well into the Greco-Roman period. Temples dedicated to him, inscriptions, and votive offerings testify to his elevated status, yet they provide no clue to the location of his final resting place. Could it be that his burial was intentionally shrouded in secrecy, transformed into a sacred mystery designed to protect his remains and ensure the continued veneration of his genius? Or did the natural forces of Nile floods, sandstorms, and the passage of time claim the tomb before it could be recorded or preserved? The nature of his work offers additional intrigue. As the architect of the first pyramid, Imhotep understood the interplay of stone, space, and celestial alignment. Could he have designed his own tomb with the same meticulous care, embedding secret chambers, hidden passages, or cryptic inscriptions meant to guard knowledge as much as the body itself? Archaeologists have long noted the symbolic and geometric precision of Djoser's step pyramid, a structure designed to transcend the mortal plane. Is it possible that Imhotep applied similar principles to his own resting place, crafting a tomb that resists detection even millennia later? Historical accounts also hint at social and political factors that might have influenced the disappearance of his tomb. Despite his extraordinary accomplishments, Imhotep was a commoner elevated to prominence, an anomaly in a society obsessed with lineage and status. Could his burial have been deliberately understated, hidden from rival factions, or intentionally erased from records to prevent disruption of dynastic narratives? The interplay of reverence and secrecy may have created a paradox. A man celebrated in life and worshipped in death, yet physically absent from the historical and archaeological record. Efforts to locate his tomb have spanned generations. Excavations at Saqqara and surrounding necropolises have uncovered countless tombs, funerary complexes, and inscriptions, yet none definitively identify Imhotep's final resting place. Some scholars speculate that it may lie beneath or adjacent to Djoser's step pyramid, its location obscured by the massive scale of the complex and subsequent construction over centuries. Others suggest that it may be hidden in a lesser-known sector of Saqqara, overlooked amid the multitude of royal and noble burials. Each hypothesis invites further investigation, yet no consensus has emerged, leaving the mystery intact. The allure of Imhotep's tomb extends beyond archaeology into legend and imagination. Tales from the Greco-Roman period describe him as a healer, a sage, and a visionary, blending history and myth. Could his tomb contain knowledge encoded in hieroglyphs, architectural secrets, or medical treatises now lost to history? Or might it have been intentionally kept inaccessible, a sacred repository meant only for those with the wisdom to interpret its hidden truths? The very absence of the tomb fuels fascination, inviting generations to wonder what might still lie beneath the sands, silently awaiting rediscovery. Scientific methods provide tantalizing, though inconclusive, clues. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imaging, and modern archaeological techniques have mapped parts of Saqqara with unprecedented precision, revealing anomalies in the landscape that hint at undiscovered structures. Could these hidden spaces conceal Imhotep's tomb, or do they belong to unknown nobles, priests, or pharaohs? The line between fact and speculation blurs, yet the possibility of uncovering a resting place for one of history's most extraordinary minds persists, driving exploration and study. Ultimately, the disappearance of Imhotep's tomb is a reminder of the fragility of human memory and the persistence of mystery. A man whose genius shaped civilization, who became a god in the eyes of later generations, has left behind monuments, texts, and legends, but no confirmed grave. His absence challenges us to consider the nature of legacy. What is preserved, what is lost, and what remains hidden in the silent desert. Like the tombs of K555, the unknown queen of Saqqara, and the hidden chambers of Khufu, Imhotep's final resting place stands as a symbol of history's enduring enigmas. As we gaze across the arid expanse of Saqqara, where pyramids rise like shadows against the horizon and ancient stones whisper of lives long gone, one is compelled to wonder, where is Imhotep buried? And what secrets does his tomb hold? Does it lie beneath layers of sand, protected by design and intention, or has it been forever claimed by the passage of time? The mystery endures, inviting the patient, the curious, and the determined to seek, explore, and imagine what might still be hidden in the sands of Egypt. From the enigmatic disappearance of Imhotep's tomb, our journey now moves to the diplomatic corridors of ancient Egypt, far from the desert sands and hidden tombs, into the realm of ink, clay, and the written word. Here lies a collection of artifacts that illuminate not the resting places of kings or queens, but the delicate threads of power and politics that connected Egypt to the wider world, the Amarna Letters. These clay tablets, discovered in the late 19th century at the site of Akhenaten, modern-day Amarna, offer a glimpse into an empire's diplomacy, yet they also leave profound mysteries in their wake. Each tablet carries a message, a plea, or a demand, but together they suggest questions that continue to intrigue scholars. What secrets do these letters conceal about the political and personal lives of pharaohs, and what truths remain hidden behind the formal language of kings and foreign rulers? The Amarna Letters were carefully inscribed in cuneiform on clay, then baked either intentionally or by natural sun-drying, preserving their contents for more than 3 millennia. They represent correspondence between Egypt and neighboring kingdoms, Babylon, Mitanni, Hatti, and territories within Palestine, documenting treaties, marriages, disputes, and requests for gifts or military aid. Some letters are simple and procedural, while others reveal tension, frustration, and subtle intrigue. As one reads the correspondence, the pharaoh is no longer an abstract figure of grandeur, but a participant in a web of negotiations, power struggles, and personal relationships. Yet these letters, as revealing as they are, also provoke profound mysteries. Many of the messages are incomplete or fragmented, with missing portions of text or broken edges. Others refer to events, people, and political arrangements that remain otherwise unattested, leaving gaps in our understanding of the era. Who exactly were some of the shadowy figures mentioned only in passing, and what role did they play in the delicate balance of power? Were certain letters censored, deliberately altered, or copied with errors that obscure their original meaning? Each fragment invites speculation, revealing only glimpses of a larger, unseen narrative. The geopolitical context of the letters adds to their allure. Akhenaten's reign, marked by religious revolution and the elevation of Aten as the central deity, coincided with a period of intense foreign diplomacy. The letters depict a pharaoh negotiating with rulers whose kingdoms were simultaneously allies, rivals, and potential threats. Some messages convey subtle admonitions, while others reveal frustration over unfulfilled requests or disloyalty. Could the tone and wording of these letters hint at deeper conspiracies, secret alliances, or rivalries unknown from other historical sources? And to what extent do they reflect the personal ambitions and anxieties of the rulers themselves, rather than the official positions of their kingdoms? One of the most compelling mysteries involves the sheer volume and dispersion of the letters. Over 350 tablets have been recovered, yet they represent only a fraction of the correspondence that likely existed. Were other messages lost, destroyed, or hidden, perhaps to protect state secrets or obscure politically sensitive matters? The possibility of undiscovered archives, either in Amarna or elsewhere, tantalizes historians, suggesting that the full story of Egypt's foreign relations and the personal influence of the pharaohs has yet to be revealed. The letters also raise questions about the inner workings of the Egyptian court. Some correspondence references internal unrest, succession concerns, and the conduct of officials in distant provinces. Could these subtle remarks hint at intrigues within the palace itself, foreshadowing events that would later shake the stability of the kingdom? When we read between the lines of formal phrasing and diplomatic formulae, the letters begin to suggest not only the exercise of statecraft, but the vulnerabilities, ambitions, and uncertainties that accompanied it. Moreover, the Amarna Letters blur the line between historical record and personal expression. In some messages, pharaohs or foreign rulers complain about perceived slights, express frustration over missing gifts, or negotiate marriages intended to solidify alliances. These personal glimpses reveal the human dimensions behind monumental history. Yet the surviving letters give only fragments of these interactions, leaving us to wonder what was omitted, miscommunicated, or destroyed deliberately. How much of the story is lost to time, and how much was concealed intentionally by those who understood the power of written words in shaping legacy? The mystery deepens when considering the eventual abandonment of Amarna. Akhenaten's capital was deserted, his religious reforms largely reversed, and many records of the period were suppressed or destroyed. Could the removal and dispersal of the letters have been part of an intentional effort to erase certain narratives, to conceal knowledge of alliances, disputes, or family connections? Were these clay tablets saved by accident, or were they preserved for reasons we may never fully understand? Each letter that survives is both a message and a fragment of a broader historical enigma, a window into diplomacy that preserves as much as it conceals. Standing before the Amarna Letters, whether in a museum or through the lens of scholarship, one senses both presence and absence, voices reaching across the centuries, yet incomplete, ambiguous, and tantalizingly elusive. They reveal the complexity of Egyptian diplomacy, the subtlety of court politics, and the enduring human need to negotiate, persuade, and protect one's interests. And yet, for all their clarity in certain details, they withhold as much as they disclose, leaving room for speculation, imagination, and continued investigation. The Amarna Letters, like the tombs of Khufu 55, the unknown queen of Saqqara, and the lost resting place of Imhotep, remind us that even in civilizations as meticulously documented as ancient Egypt, mysteries persist. The letters are voices from the past, fragments of human ambition, diplomacy, and secrecy, preserved in clay, yet still veiled in ambiguity. What stories remain untold within their lines? What events, alliances, or intrigues have been lost to the sands of time? And perhaps most compelling of all, what secrets do these letters conceal that could forever alter our understanding of the pharaohs and the world they sought to command? From the intricate diplomacy captured in the Amarna Letters, we now shift our gaze from the political world of kings and emissaries to the spiritual and symbolic landscapes that shaped ancient Egyptian belief, the maps of the afterlife. Across tomb walls, temple ceilings, and the pages of papyrus, the Egyptians crafted visions of realms beyond death, guides intended to navigate the soul through the unknown, to secure safe passage into eternity. These afterlife maps, precise in detail yet enigmatic in meaning, blur the line between art, ritual, and knowledge, offering glimpses into a civilization's deepest preoccupations with mortality, divinity, and cosmic order. Some of the most remarkable examples appear in royal tombs of the New Kingdom, where walls and ceilings are adorned with detailed cosmographies, star charts, riverways, pathways through mountains, and the positioning of divine gates create a topography of the afterlife, as intricate as any earthly map. For a pharaoh, these illustrations were not merely decorative. They were instructional, a spiritual GPS to ensure the soul's journey through trials, tribulations, and judgment. Yet the precision and consistency of these maps raise questions. Were they meant solely for the deceased ruler, or did they encode knowledge intended for those who might discover them centuries later? Could these maps contain a symbolic geography that parallels Egypt itself, reflecting sacred knowledge about the world, the heavens, or hidden wisdom lost to history? The earliest of these afterlife depictions emerge in the pyramid texts of the Old Kingdom, evolving through the coffin texts of the Middle Kingdom and reaching astonishing complexity in the New Kingdom's Book of the Dead and Amduat compositions. Each iteration adds layers of detail, rivers and lakes representing obstacles or opportunities, gates guarded by deities, and celestial symbols charting the pharaoh's journey alongside the sun through night and day. Yet even with such elaborate design, scholars debate the underlying principles guiding their creation. Were these maps literal guides, metaphysical instructions, or both? Could they conceal coded information, astronomical, geographical, or even political, that we have yet to decode? Some maps are strikingly precise in their representation of the heavens. Constellations, the path of the sun, and the movements of deities are rendered with remarkable accuracy, suggesting that Egyptian priests and scribes possessed an intimate understanding of the cosmos. Yet how did this knowledge translate into the afterlife maps? Were these depictions meant as allegorical narratives, practical instructions, or perhaps even encoded messages about the structure of the universe itself? When we trace the lines across the ceilings of tombs like those in the Valley of the Kings, the maps seem to hover between earthly reality and metaphysical imagination, guiding the pharaoh through both spiritual trials and cosmic order. The afterlife maps also hint at unknown or inaccessible knowledge. Some tombs contain passages to regions that do not correspond to any known geographical or celestial location. Rivers flow into uncharted lands, gates guard mysteries unnamed, and deities appear whose roles remain obscure. Could these elements represent lost mythologies, personal religious innovations, or secret teachings reserved for the elite? Do they reflect practical knowledge of the afterlife, encoded in imagery to be interpreted by priests, or are they symbolic reminders that the realms beyond death are ultimately unknowable? Even more intriguing are the variations between tombs. Pharaohs of the same period sometimes depict afterlife maps with striking differences, suggesting that individual interpretations, or perhaps secretive priestly guidance, played a role in their design. Did these variations reflect personal beliefs, political symbolism, or a hidden layer of knowledge meant to distinguish one ruler from another? And if so, could these maps contain clues to broader mysteries? Unrecorded astronomical phenomena, hidden religious practices, or insights into how pharaohs sought to control both the physical and spiritual worlds? The very placement of these maps within tombs offers additional intrigue. Often positioned above the sarcophagus or on ceilings, they required careful construction, precise alignment, and perhaps even rituals to activate their intended power. Were these maps purely spiritual tools, or did their orientation, geometry, and symbolism encode secret information about the heavens, the cycles of time, or sacred knowledge accessible only to the pharaoh and his priesthood? Could they serve as a metaphysical compass, linking the tomb to distant temples, the Nile, and the cosmic order in ways we have yet to fully comprehend? Modern technology has revealed more about these afterlife maps, yet their full meaning remains elusive. High-resolution imaging, digital reconstruction, and comparative studies have allowed scholars to trace their iconography and geometry with unprecedented precision. But even as we uncover details about rivers, gates, and celestial symbols, the deeper purpose of these maps continues to evade complete understanding. Were they created as mnemonic devices, symbolic theology, cosmic instructions, or some combination of all three? And what might they reveal about the pharaoh's understanding of existence, power, and the mysteries of life and death? The afterlife maps, like the Amarna Letters, the tombs of Khufu 55, and the disappearance of Imhotep's resting place, remind us that ancient Egypt was a civilization obsessed with both the known and the unknowable. These depictions straddle the boundary between reality and imagination, guiding pharaohs through life and beyond while preserving riddles for generations to come. They invite contemplation of mortality, authority, and the cosmos, revealing a culture that sought to reconcile human ambition with the mysteries of existence. As we gaze upon these maps, tracing the rivers, gates, and celestial paths with our eyes and imagination, we are left with enduring questions. What truths did the pharaohs hope to preserve through these visual guides? Do they encode knowledge lost to time, secret wisdom intended for the afterlife, or simply reflections of belief and ritual? And perhaps most compelling of all, what secrets still lie hidden within the lines and symbols of these maps, waiting silently beneath the tombs, to be discovered, interpreted, and understood? From the celestial paths of the afterlife maps, where pharaohs charted their journeys beyond death, we now descend once more to the sands and stones of Deir el-Bahari, to a monument both breathtaking and enigmatic, the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut. Rising from the cliffs like a tiered vision of stone, this temple evokes awe and reverence, yet its very walls conceal a history that was systematically erased. Hatshepsut, one of ancient Egypt's most extraordinary rulers, ascended to the throne in a period of dynastic uncertainty, declaring herself pharaoh in her own right, a woman who wielded power, commanded armies, and oversaw monumental building projects. And yet, after her death, much of her legacy was deliberately obscured, her name chiseled from inscriptions, her images defaced, leaving a silence that speaks as loudly as any text. Hatshepsut's reign during the 18th dynasty, around 1479 to 1458 BC, was marked by prosperity, ambitious trade expeditions, and architectural innovation. Her temple at Deir el-Bahari reflects both artistic sophistication and spiritual intent. Colonnaded terraces, reliefs depicting her divine birth, and chambers adorned with scenes of the fabled expedition to Punt. The temple itself is a statement of authority and legitimacy, yet it stands in paradox to the deliberate erasure that followed her death. Statues were destroyed or recarved, her name replaced with that of her successor, Thutmose III, as if to erase the memory of a female ruler who defied convention. The act of erasure raises profound questions. Was it purely political, a measure to strengthen the legitimacy of Thutmose III, or did it reflect societal discomfort with a woman exercising pharaonic authority? Some historians argue that the defacement of her images and removal of her name from official monuments was a targeted campaign intended to remove her from the official narrative of Egyptian history. Others suggest a more subtle dynamic, where later generations sought to reconcile her extraordinary accomplishments with prevailing norms of gender and kingship. Whatever the reason, the effect was a deliberate distortion of memory, leaving archaeologists and historians to reconstruct her story from fragments of inscriptions, surviving statues, and the silent majesty of her buildings. Even today, Hatshepsut's presence lingers in the objects and architecture that survived. Reliefs depict her in traditional male regalia, wearing the false beard and kilt of pharaohs, a symbolic assertion of authority that transcended gender. Scenes of her divine birth emphasize legitimacy sanctioned by the gods, reinforcing her right to rule. Yet these images, though carefully crafted, were later defaced, leaving gaps in the narrative and forcing scholars to piece together her reign from incomplete evidence. Could these alterations reflect more than politics? Perhaps an intentional suppression of knowledge, a cultural anxiety about female power, or even a spiritual belief about who could occupy the throne in life and after death? Hatshepsut's mortuary temple also raises questions about the relationship between memory, space, and power. Constructed against the cliffs of Thebes, it mirrors natural terraces and monumental geography, integrating tomb, temple, and desert landscape into a cohesive statement of divine authority. Its alignment, use of light and shadow, and the placement of chambers and chapels suggest deliberate planning to create a spiritual journey for both the living and the dead. Could the architectural design itself encode messages about her reign, her ambitions, or her relationship to the gods, messages that remain undeciphered because of the later acts of erasure? The story of her erasure is intertwined with her posthumous reputation. For centuries, knowledge of her reign was obscured, surviving only in scattered references and the careful work of archaeologists who began to uncover her story in the 19th and 20th centuries. The discovery of her mummy in the Valley of the Kings, the reconstruction of defaced statues, and the careful analysis of temple reliefs have gradually restored her image. But the gaps remain. We do not know the full extent of her political strategies, her personal relationships, or the behind-the-scenes negotiations that allowed a woman to rule as pharaoh. Was she universally respected, subtly opposed, or feared in her own time? The silence of the historical record leaves room for speculation but also heightens the mystery. Even more puzzling are the subtle messages that survived the erasure. Reliefs depicting the expedition to Punt, the divine birth, and ceremonial offerings convey not only political legitimacy, but also an intimate vision of Hatshepsut's worldview, her priorities, and perhaps her understanding of kingship itself. Could these fragments reflect a conscious effort to immortalize her achievements despite the attempts to obliterate her memory? And if so, what else might have been lost? Ritual knowledge, secret alliances, or innovations in governance that were deliberately excluded from official history? Hatshepsut's erased legacy, like the afterlife maps of earlier pharaohs, Khufu 55, the unknown queen of Saqqara, and Imhotep's lost tomb, challenges modern assumptions about power, memory, and the impermanence of human ambition. She stands as both a ruler and a mystery, her life recorded in stone yet deliberately silenced, her achievements celebrated and yet hidden. Her story invites reflection on how history is preserved, altered, and interpreted, and how the passage of time, politics, and ideology shape the way we remember, or forget, those who once held extraordinary power. As we stand in the shadow of her temple, tracing the terraces and corridors with our eyes and imagination, the question remains: what truths did Hatshepsut hope to leave behind? What aspects of her reign were intended to endure? And what was lost to the chisels of history? And most compelling of all, what other secrets lie hidden within the stones, waiting to reveal the full story of a pharaoh who dared to transcend convention and whose voice, though partially erased, continues to echo across the millennia? From the enduring stone terraces of Hatshepsut's mortuary temple, where the echoes of erased authority still whisper across the cliffs of Deir el-Bahari, we now journey to a different kind of revolution, one that sought to reshape not monuments, but the very spiritual foundations of ancient Egypt. In the sands of Akhenaten, modern-day Amarna, lies the story of Akhenaten, a pharaoh who dared to challenge the gods themselves, to replace centuries of polytheistic tradition with the worship of a single, radiant deity, Aten, the sun disk. The rise of this forbidden religion is as compelling as it is enigmatic, leaving behind temples, inscriptions, and relics that hint at devotion, conflict, and perhaps a vision of divinity that history has only begun to comprehend. Akhenaten's reign, around 1353 to 1336 BC, was marked by extraordinary ambition. He abandoned the traditional capital of Thebes, establishing Akhenaten as a new city dedicated to Aten. Here, the city's architecture, temple layout, and art forms reflected a radical theological shift. Walls were adorned with depictions of the sun's rays touching the pharaoh and his family, illustrating a personal and intimate relationship with the divine. Even the style of art changed. Elongated forms, naturalistic figures, and scenes of everyday life were elevated to sacred status. Yet, amid this innovation lies a deeper mystery. Why did Akhenaten seek such singular devotion, and what were the unseen consequences of this radical spiritual experiment? The texts and inscriptions from Akhenaten provide tantalizing, if incomplete, insight. Official hymns celebrate Aten as the sole creator, sustaining all life with solar energy. Priests, artists, and scribes were commissioned to extol this deity, recording praises and rituals that elevated the sun disk above all others. But the historical record is curiously silent on the reaction of the broader population. Did the people embrace this monotheistic vision, or did traditional beliefs persist quietly beneath the surface? And what of the pharaoh himself? Was this a deeply personal devotion, a political maneuver to consolidate power, or a vision that sought to redefine the cosmic order itself? Akhenaten's religious revolution disrupted centuries of tradition, yet much about its implementation remains unclear. Temples dedicated to Amun, Osiris, and other deities were abandoned or defaced, their priests displaced. How much of this was a deliberate attempt to erase polytheism, and how much reflected broader socio-political strategy? Archaeologists have noted abrupt changes in burial practices, ritual emphasis, and iconography. Could these shifts indicate a secret network of adherents, underground practices, or hidden theological texts that sought to reconcile the old gods with the new sun-centric faith? The scarcity of surviving records leaves the true scope of Akhenaten's religious vision shrouded in uncertainty. The city of Akhenaten itself offers additional intrigue. Situated on a plateau overlooking the Nile, the city was carefully planned to align with the rising and setting sun. Temples and palaces were arranged in geometric precision, emphasizing solar orientation and symbolic order. Could this urban design reflect more than religious fervor? Did Akhenaten intend the city itself to be a living map of divine power, a monument to the sun that guided not only spiritual practice but political authority as well? And if so, what secrets remain hidden beneath the foundations, lost to the erosion of time or deliberately concealed by subsequent rulers who sought to dismantle his legacy? Akhenaten's family also played a crucial role in the theological narrative. His queen, Nefertiti, is often depicted in intimate communion with Aten, participating in rituals alongside the pharaoh. The portrayal of their daughters in sunlit scenes further emphasizes a unique approach to divine legitimacy. Yet the absence of corroborating records and the deliberate destruction of posthumous references raise questions. Did these figures wield influence in the propagation of Akhenaten's faith, or were they symbolic constructs intended to reinforce the pharaoh's ideology? And what of Akhenaten's successor, Tutankhamun, who famously abandoned Akhenaten and restored traditional worship? What secrets might he have inherited, and what knowledge was lost in the return to orthodoxy? The suppression of Akhenaten's religious revolution is perhaps its most compelling enigma. After his death, the city of Akhenaten was largely abandoned. Temples fell into ruin, and references to Aten were systematically removed from monuments and texts. Was this an effort to erase heresy, to restore balance, or to protect sacred knowledge deemed dangerous or destabilizing? Archaeologists and historians debate whether fragments of Atenist practice survived clandestinely, perhaps influencing hidden sects or philosophical currents that have yet to be uncovered. Could traces of Akhenaten's spiritual vision exist in unexpected places, waiting for discovery, encoded in art, architecture, or ritual that we have only begun to interpret? Modern research has revealed tantalizing anomalies. Reliefs, inscriptions, and artifacts suggest layers of belief and symbolism that challenge conventional understanding. Some scholars argue that Akhenaten's monotheism anticipated philosophical and theological concepts seen much later in history. Others propose that hidden networks of knowledge, ritual instructions, astronomical observations, or symbolic cosmologies were deliberately obscured to survive only in fragmentary form. Each discovery opens new questions. What truths about divine power, governance, and cosmic order did Akhenaten seek to communicate, and how much of his vision remains hidden, erased, or misinterpreted by time? Akhenaten's forbidden religion, like the erased legacy of Hatshepsut, the afterlife maps of pharaohs, and the lost tombs and texts we have explored, reminds us that ancient Egypt is a civilization of both revelation and concealment. It offers glimpses of ambition, devotion, and radical innovation, yet conceals the full depth of human intent and belief. In the ruins of Akhenaten, amid the sunlit terraces and silent temples, one senses the tension between innovation and erasure, faith and suppression, vision and oblivion. As we walk through the remnants of Akhenaten city, tracing the terraces, temples, and inscriptions with our eyes and imagination, one cannot help but wonder, what secrets remain buried in these sun-washed stones? Did Akhenaten's faith leave behind hidden truths about the divine, humanity, or the cosmos? And perhaps most haunting of all, what knowledge was lost in the shadows of history, waiting for the patient, the curious, and the determined to uncover what once dared to challenge the gods themselves? From the sunlit terraces of Akhenaten, where Akhenaten sought to reshape the divine order, our journey now moves into the shadowed corridors of Egypt's funerary mysteries, where the past remains stubbornly silent. Among the many tombs of the Valley of the Kings lies a figure that has puzzled archaeologists and historians alike, the mummy known simply as Unknown Man E. Unlike the well-documented resting places of Tutankhamun or Ramses III, this body emerges from obscurity, its identity, status, and fate concealed by both time and deliberate erasure. Wrapped in linen and enshrouded in secrecy, Unknown Man E invites speculation. Who was he, and why does he stand apart in the annals of pharaonic history? The mummy, discovered in Khufu 35 during excavations in the early 20th century, was positioned in a side chamber of the tomb, far from the central sarcophagus that housed Amenemhat II. Initial studies revealed a violent end, traces of wounds, indications of strangulation, and signs of hurried or unusual embalming techniques. Unlike the carefully preserved mummies of reigning pharaohs, the preparation of Unknown Man E suggests something exceptional, perhaps a punishment, a political assassination, or a clandestine execution that demanded secrecy. The evidence raises questions that remain unresolved. Was this an unrecognized king, a usurper, or a high-ranking official who fell out of favor? And why was he buried in proximity to a royal tomb, yet with clear indications of dishonor or concealment? Radiological and forensic analyses have provided tantalizing, yet incomplete insights. The body shows signs of advanced age, unusual trauma, and the use of embalming techniques consistent with the late 18th dynasty. Some researchers suggest a connection to the turbulent aftermath of Akhenaten's reign, speculating that Unknown Man E may have been implicated in palace intrigues or factional disputes during the return to traditional worship. Could he have been an adherent of Aten, a rival claimant, or even a member of the royal family erased from history to secure dynastic stability? Each hypothesis underscores the complex interplay of politics, religion, and mortality in ancient Egypt. The circumstances surrounding the mummy's placement deepen the mystery. He was interred in a chamber with other unidentified bodies, often interpreted as either royal relatives or victims of political upheaval. The haste and secrecy implied by the burial provoke further questions. Was this an attempt to hide a crime, suppress knowledge of a failed succession, or prevent the desecration of a sacred lineage? The placement and treatment of Unknown Man E suggest that the act of burial itself was as much a message as it was a funerary ritual. A silent warning, a deliberate concealment, or perhaps both. Theories abound, yet none are definitive. Some propose that Unknown Man E could be Akhenaten's intended successor, a son or close advisor whose fortunes collapsed after the pharaoh's controversial religious reforms. Others speculate he may have been involved in palace intrigues leading to Tutankhamun's rise, or even connected to the assassination of other prominent figures whose deaths remain shrouded in uncertainty. Each scenario is supported by fragments of evidence, facial reconstructions, trauma analysis, and burial context. Yet the absence of corroborating inscriptions or records keeps the true identity veiled. Even the mummy itself conveys a narrative of contradiction. Carefully mummified, yet bearing signs of violent death, placed within a royal tomb, yet segregated in a shadowed chamber, preserved through centuries, yet deliberately hidden from memory. Unknown Man E embodies a paradox that defines much of Egyptology, the intersection of reverence and erasure, devotion and intrigue, certainty and doubt. In examining this figure, we confront the limits of knowledge and the fragility of historical record, forced to reconcile forensic evidence with the cultural, political, and spiritual realities of the time. The broader historical context provides further intrigue. The late 18th dynasty was a period of upheaval. Akhenaten's religious revolution, the temporary decline of Aten worship, the restoration of Amun and traditional deities, and the rise of Tutankhamun. Within this turbulence, many figures vanished from official record, leaving only traces of their lives and deaths in tombs, inscriptions, or fragments of pottery. Could Unknown Man E represent one of these lost threads of history, a casualty of ideological conflict, dynastic ambition, or personal betrayal? And if so, how many other secrets lie buried alongside him, silent witnesses to events we may never fully reconstruct? Further complicating matters are the anomalies in the mummy itself. Facial reconstruction suggests unusual features, height, and physique that differ from other 18th dynasty royals, prompting speculation about genetic lines, disease, or even intermarriage practices intended to consolidate power. Was Unknown Man E an outsider to the royal lineage, a symbolic figurehead, or someone whose very identity was deliberately obscured to prevent recognition? The absence of inscriptions or titles amplifies the mystery, leaving only the body itself as testimony to a life and a death that history sought to erase. Unknown Man E, like the forbidden religion of Akhenaten, the erased legacy of Hatshepsut, and the afterlife maps of Pharaohs, reminds us that ancient Egypt is a civilization of both revelation and concealment. Each mummy, tomb, and artifact is a portal into human ambition, divine ideology, and the precariousness of memory. Yet some stories remain partial, fragmented, or deliberately silenced, challenging modern scholars to reconstruct what was lost and to imagine what might never be recovered. As we peer into the shrouded chamber, examining the linen, the traces of trauma, and the shadows cast by centuries of neglect, the questions persist. Who was Unknown Man E, and why was he denied the recognition afforded to other royals? Was he a pawn, a victim, or a sovereign erased by history? And most compelling of all, what other secrets lie hidden in the dark recesses of Egypt's tombs, waiting silently to reveal the truths of a civilization that remains as mysterious as it is monumental? From the shadowed chamber of Unknown Man E, where the secrets of political intrigue and concealed deaths linger silently, our gaze now rises to the heavens, where the ambitions and knowledge of pharaohs reach beyond the sands into the cosmic expanse. Across the deserts and riverbanks of ancient Egypt, monuments and temples align with precision, their placement seemingly dictated not only by geography, but by the stars themselves. The Great Pyramids of Giza, the temples of Karnak, and countless tombs reveal a deliberate orchestration, suggesting a civilization acutely aware of celestial rhythms and intent on embedding cosmic order into stone. These astronomical alignments, carefully preserved for millennia, invite us to ponder the mind of the pharaohs and their understanding of the universe. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, for instance, is famously oriented almost perfectly to the cardinal points, Surveys show its sides align with the four cardinal directions to within a fraction of a degree, an achievement that has long captivated scholars and engineers alike. Such precision suggests not mere chance, but a sophisticated grasp of astronomy. Did the builders rely on the rising and setting of particular stars, or perhaps the shadow cast by the sun at specific times of year? And if so, what was the intended purpose? Ritual, symbolic, or practical? Were these alignments meant to ensure the pharaoh's eternal journey, to mirror the cosmos on Earth, or to encode knowledge now lost to time? Beyond the pyramids, temples were often oriented to celestial events. At Karnak, the axis of the main temple aligns with the rising sun on the day of the winter solstice, illuminating the sanctuary in a fleeting sacred light. Other temples correspond to the rising of specific stars, particularly those associated with Osiris and the afterlife. These alignments suggest a symbolic dialogue between earthly rulers and the cosmos, where architecture itself becomes an instrument of cosmic communication. Could the pharaohs have believed that by mirroring celestial patterns, they ensured the favor of the gods, or even their own immortality? Astronomical knowledge was also embedded in tombs and mortuary complexes. Ceilings of royal chambers often depict constellations, the path of the sun, and the motions of key stars, forming detailed star charts that guide the deceased pharaoh through the afterlife. These depictions were more than decorative. They were instructional, merging science and spirituality. Yet some alignments remain enigmatic. Certain tombs seem oriented to stars that no longer occupy the positions indicated, implying either shifts over time or astronomical knowledge that may have been lost or purposefully obscured. Were these deliberate puzzles, ritual safeguards, or clues to knowledge that only the initiated could decode? Even more perplexing are the anomalies that defy easy explanation. Archaeologists have noted unusual alignments in some pyramids and temples that do not correspond to known solar or stellar patterns. Could these point to a now-lost understanding of planetary cycles, lunar phenomena, or the appearance of celestial events like comets or supernovae? Some scholars speculate that pharaohs and their priests observed cycles of the heavens with such precision that modern science is only beginning to approximate their calculations. Was this knowledge purely religious, or did it also serve political and societal purposes, reinforcing the pharaoh's authority as both ruler and cosmic intermediary? The integration of celestial alignment into architecture also suggests a broader philosophical framework. Pharaohs were not only earthly rulers, but cosmic mediators, their authority legitimized by the stars. Temples, pyramids, and tombs were physical manifestations of this connection, each structure a testament to the pharaoh's ability to harmonize human and divine order. Could it be that these alignments served as a map of spiritual power, a symbolic network linking temples, tombs, and sacred sites across Egypt in a cosmic web we are only beginning to recognize? Yet much remains uncertain. The specific methods used to achieve such precise orientations are still debated. Did the Egyptians employ sighting instruments, observations of circumpolar stars, or advanced geometrical techniques? And why do some alignments appear to emphasize obscure or minor celestial objects rather than the sun or prominent stars? These questions remind us that even as we uncover remarkable evidence of astronomical sophistication, the pharaoh's intentions and understanding remain tantalizingly out of reach. The integration of astronomy into Egyptian ritual practice reinforces the sense of mystery. Religious ceremonies, festivals, and royal processions were often timed to celestial events, reinforcing the interplay between human action and cosmic order. Could some temples and tombs have served as observatories, where priests tracked the heavens not only for ritual purposes, but to record knowledge about the cycles of time, the seasons, or the divine plan? And if so, what other wisdom might lie encoded in these alignments, waiting silently beneath layers of stone and sand, hidden for millennia? Pharaohs' astronomical alignments, like the secretive burial of unknown man E, the erased legacy of Hatshepsut, and the monotheistic revolution of Akhenaten, remind us that ancient Egypt was a civilization profoundly concerned with order, both on earth and in the heavens. Each alignment, each shadow cast at dawn or dusk, each perfectly positioned temple axis, offers a glimpse into a worldview in which kingship, divinity, and the cosmos were inseparably intertwined. As we stand before the monuments, tracing their lines, imagining the stars that once guided their construction, one cannot help but wonder, did the pharaohs possess knowledge of the heavens that has since been lost? Were these alignments purely symbolic, or did they encode practical, astronomical wisdom beyond our understanding? And perhaps most compellingly, what other secrets linger in the alignment of stones and stars, patiently waiting for those who can read the sky as the ancients once did? From the precise orientations of temples and pyramids, where human ambition intersects with the heavens, our attention now shifts inward into the very stone walls of the pyramids themselves, where words etched millennia ago remain partially silent. Deep within the chambers of Saqqara and the later pyramids of the Old Kingdom, hieroglyphs cover walls, sarcophagi, and niches in dense, intricate sequences. Known today as the pyramid texts, these inscriptions represent the earliest corpus of religious writing in Egypt, yet their meaning, purpose, and full interpretation continue to elude scholars. Here, in these shadowed corridors, language itself becomes a vessel of mystery, preserving both devotion and enigma. The pyramid texts date as far back as the 5th and 6th dynasties, around 2400 to 2300 BC. Carved for kings and occasionally for queens, they were designed to guide the deceased pharaoh through the afterlife, ensuring immortality and divine communion. The inscriptions encompass spells, hymns, incantations, and ritual directives, blending poetic imagery with precise instruction. Yet, despite decades of study, many passages resist clear understanding. Are they literal guides to navigating the netherworld, symbolic invocations of cosmic order, or perhaps a combination of both? The ambiguity deepens the allure, suggesting knowledge that was once sacred and now tantalizingly incomplete. The texts themselves are remarkable for both their complexity and their consistency. Certain phrases recur, invoking deities like Osiris, Ra, and Anubis, describing ascent to the sky, transformation into a star, or participation in divine councils. Other passages are cryptic, employing metaphors, obscure terminology, or syntax that defies straightforward translation. Some scholars have proposed that these sections encode secret knowledge, ritual practices, cosmological theories, or esoteric philosophies accessible only to initiates. Could the undeciphered portions represent a spiritual or scientific framework lost to time, perhaps deliberately obscured to preserve their sanctity? Equally intriguing is the physical placement of the texts. Carved on the walls of burial chambers, above sarcophagi, and along shafts leading to the pyramid's apex, the inscriptions appear to follow a carefully considered spatial logic. Certain spells are positioned near entrances, others within recesses deep in the chamber, as though each word interacts with light, shadow, and geometry. Does this arrangement serve a practical ritual function, guiding the spirit along a predetermined path, or does it reflect a symbolic map of the cosmos, encoding celestial or seasonal cycles into stone? And if so, what other knowledge might be hidden in the spatial interplay between text, architecture, and ritual? The pyramid texts also reveal traces of theological innovation. They illustrate a nuanced conception of the afterlife, one in which the king is not merely preserved but transformed, ascending to join the sun, merging with divine essence, and asserting authority over cosmic forces. Yet the texts are selective, reserved for royalty or elite figures, suggesting a highly stratified spiritual hierarchy. Could there have been complementary texts, now lost, intended for priests, nobility, or the general populace? And if so, how much of the Old Kingdom's spiritual and philosophical worldview has vanished with them, leaving only fragments on stone walls to hint at a greater whole? Modern attempts at decipherment have yielded extraordinary insight, yet mysteries persist. Linguists can translate many words, but the rhythm, intention, and cultural resonance of the texts remain elusive. Some passages describe actions that have no modern analog, others reference deities or rituals otherwise unknown. Did the ancient scribes encode astronomical or calendrical knowledge alongside spiritual instruction, perhaps linking the deceased king's journey to the motion of stars or seasonal cycles, as seen in the astronomical alignments of the pyramids? Could elements of these texts correspond to lost technology, esoteric science, or symbolic mathematics now obscured by millennia of cultural and linguistic drift? Even the literary style of the pyramid texts provokes wonder. Shifts between narrative, prayer, and ritual command create a rhythm that suggests performance, oral recitation, or enactment. Were these words meant to be spoken aloud by priests, whispered by attendants, or intoned by the pharaoh himself? And if spoken, could the cadence, tone, or ritual gestures unlock layers of meaning lost in modern translation? The texts imply an immersive experience, one that combined language, space, and action in a way that was deeply experiential, yet remains largely inaccessible to us today. The enduring mystery of the pyramid texts lies in their dual nature, at once revealing and concealing. They speak of divine ascent, cosmic order, and immortality, yet their undeciphered passages suggest knowledge intentionally hidden or irretrievably lost. They exist in a space between language and ritual, history and philosophy, human and divine. The more we study, the more the texts challenge assumptions, demanding patience, imagination, and humility before the depth of human ambition and belief. As we trace the hieroglyphs along the walls, imagining the hands that carved them and the voices that may have intoned them, one cannot help but reflect. What truths did the scribes of the Old Kingdom seek to preserve? Which spells guided kings to immortality, and which remain mysteries we are not yet ready to comprehend? And most hauntingly, what other secrets lie hidden within these inscriptions, waiting silently in the shadows of the pyramids to reveal not only the journey of a pharaoh, but the profound understanding of life, death, and the cosmos that shaped one of history's most extraordinary civilizations? From the walls of the pyramids, inscribed with enigmatic texts that have both revealed and concealed the ancient Egyptians' spiritual knowledge, we descend deeper into the subterranean mysteries of the necropolis. Beneath the Giza Plateau, hidden in shadows and silence, lies a structure known to archaeologists as the Osiris Shaft, a vertical tomb shaft whose construction, purpose, and contents continue to challenge understanding. Its narrow corridors, meticulously carved into bedrock, descend into darkness where only the faintest echoes of history remain. Within these depths, some suggest, lies the golden secret, a relic, an artifact, or a knowledge lost to time, whose significance may illuminate not only the burial practices of the Old Kingdom, but also the spiritual and symbolic imagination of the pharaohs themselves. Discovered in the 1930s, the Osiris Shaft is associated with the Giza pyramids, yet it defies simple classification. Unlike conventional burial chambers, it is a vertical shaft lined with limestone, extending deep into the bedrock below the plateau. Its design is precise, almost geometric, as if the builders intended not merely to house a body, but to encode ritual, cosmology, and symbolic significance within its walls. The shaft itself measures just over 2 meters in width, plunging downward with smooth sides, a descent both literal and metaphysical into the mysteries of death, transformation, and the underworld. Archaeologists who explored the Osiris shaft found it largely empty, yet the few objects discovered within hint at grandeur and purpose. Fragments of ceremonial artifacts, traces of organic material, and faint traces of gilding suggest that the chamber may once have contained a treasure or sacred object now vanished or deliberately removed. Theories abound. Some propose that the golden secret was a relic of Osirian worship, an artifact symbolizing the pharaoh's rebirth and alignment with the god of the afterlife. Others speculate that it may have been a repository of esoteric knowledge preserved in symbolic form, its physical absence part of a ritual concealment meant to protect divine wisdom from the profane world. The very design of the shaft adds to the mystery. Its vertical orientation, unlike the horizontal corridors of standard tombs, evokes descent into the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Could this architectural choice reflect not only practical burial concerns, but a profound symbolic statement? Perhaps the shaft itself was meant to mirror the journey of Osiris, slain and buried, descending into darkness only to rise again. Did the ancient architects believe that alignment with celestial and subterranean forces could guide the pharaoh's spirit to immortality? And if so, how much of this understanding has been lost, hidden in the precise angles and depths of the stone? Further intrigue arises from the traces of materials found within the shaft. Small remnants of gilded objects, gold leaf, and finely carved statuettes point to ritual significance, yet the scarcity of surviving artifacts deepens the enigma. Were these items part of a ceremonial deposit, a personal treasure of a pharaoh, or a symbolic representation of spiritual power? Some scholars suggest the shaft may have been a symbolic treasury, its emptiness a deliberate ritual erasure designed to emphasize the intangible power of the divine, rather than material wealth. Could the golden secret refer not to a physical object at all, but to the spiritual essence encoded within the architecture, materials, and orientation of the shaft itself? The shaft's location and connections further complicate interpretation. Situated near the central pyramid complexes, it may have been intended as a ritual complement to the main tombs, yet its secrecy implies that knowledge of its function was restricted to a select few. Was this a place of initiation for priests, a symbolic conduit to the divine, or a chamber designed for ceremonial acts lost to memory? The interplay between secrecy, architecture, and ritual evokes a civilization deeply invested in preserving spiritual truths through form as much as through inscription. Modern exploration and non-invasive scanning have revealed subtle features that continue to puzzle researchers. Small niches, faint channels, and variations in stone density suggest hidden compartments or undetected objects. Some propose that advanced ancient techniques were employed to protect the contents from desecration or looting. Could the golden secret still lie hidden within these shafts, shielded by deliberate design and the passage of thousands of years? If so, what might it reveal about the pharaoh's understanding of divinity, immortality, and the afterlife? The Osiris shaft also resonates with the broader symbolic landscape of ancient Egypt. Osiris, god of death, resurrection, and eternal life, occupies a central role in the mythology and funerary practices of the pharaohs. Temples, pyramids, and tombs across the kingdom were designed to reflect his narrative: death, burial, and rebirth. The shaft's very verticality mirrors the cycle of the sun and the soul's ascent. Could the golden secret represent a material embodiment of these cosmic principles, a key to aligning human ritual with divine order? And if such knowledge existed, how deliberately was it concealed to prevent misunderstanding or profanation? The mystery deepens when considering the absence of written records. No inscriptions definitively identify the shaft's owner or the purpose of its contents. Its connection to Osirian mythology and royal burials is inferred rather than documented. This silence invites speculation, yet also emphasizes the Egyptians' intentional interplay of revelation and concealment. Knowledge meant to be known only to the initiated, hidden in plain sight, or encoded in architecture and ritual. The shaft becomes both a physical and conceptual portal, a point where the material and spiritual, the known and the hidden, converge. As we visualize the descent into the Osiris shaft, imagining the cool stone walls, the faint traces of gilding, and the vertical plunge into darkness, one is struck by the weight of mystery. The golden secret, whether an object, a principle, or an encoded knowledge, remains elusive, preserved in shadows, angles, and the silence of millennia. It challenges us to reconsider the pharaohs not merely as rulers, but as architects of both stone and spirit, whose ambitions extended far beyond the visible world. And so, standing metaphorically at the entrance of the shaft, peering into the depths where few have ventured, we are left with the question that has haunted explorers and scholars alike. What truly lies at the heart of the Osiris shaft? Is the golden secret a treasure, a knowledge, or a divine essence? And perhaps most intriguingly, what other mysteries of the pharaoh's spiritual and material universe remain hidden, waiting for those who dare to follow the shadows into the unknown? From the depths of the Osiris shaft, where the interplay of shadow and stone conceals secrets of immortality, our journey returns to the sunlit expanses of the Nile Valley, where the monuments of Ramses II rise like eternal sentinels. Known as the Great among pharaohs, Ramses II reigned for over 6 decades during the 13th century BC, leaving behind temples, statues, and inscriptions that proclaim his power across the desert landscape. Yet for all the grandeur above ground, a lingering question haunts Egyptology. Beyond the well-documented tombs and mortuary temples, could Ramses II's final resting places remain hidden, their treasures and mysteries concealed beneath centuries of sand and stone? Ramses II, celebrated for military conquests, monumental architecture, and a reign that epitomized the zenith of the New Kingdom, is often associated with his burial in the Valley of the Kings. Khufu, his primary tomb, is known to have suffered extensive flooding, looting, and collapse over the millennia. Yet hints of alternative or supplementary tombs have surfaced, smaller chambers, side shafts, and subsidiary crypts, whose purpose remains unclear. Were these intended as decoys, secret sanctuaries, or perhaps repositories for ritual objects essential to the king's journey into eternity? Archaeological surveys of the Theban necropolis have revealed anomalies, narrow passages that lead nowhere, partially hidden chambers, and variations in stone density suggesting undiscovered cavities. Could these spaces hold relics of Ramses's reign, ceremonial treasures, or texts that might illuminate aspects of Egyptian governance, religion, or daily life? Some researchers speculate that the pharaoh's architects, aware of the threat of tomb robbers, may have constructed multiple chambers to protect his remains and the sacred items meant to accompany him into the afterlife. If so, what knowledge of architecture, hydraulics, or symbolic geometry did they employ to obscure these secrets so effectively? Ramses II's tombs were designed to merge earthly grandeur with spiritual significance. The walls of Khufu, though now partially ruined, were once adorned with vivid depictions of the king's triumphs, divine endorsements, and detailed instructions for navigating the underworld. Elsewhere, at Abu Simbel, colossal statues and intricate reliefs celebrate his victories and divine favor, projecting authority across both land and eternity. Could the hidden chambers complement this narrative, housing objects or inscriptions too sacred for public view, or encoding esoteric wisdom that modern scholarship has yet to decode? The notion of hidden tombs gains plausibility when considering Ramses II's obsession with legacy. Historical records suggest he commissioned numerous statues, temples, and inscriptions not only for posterity, but to assert cosmic order and continuity. Concealed chambers may have been part of this broader effort, secret repositories for objects of symbolic power, ritual texts, or even embalmed remains intended to ensure the king's immortality. Could there be chambers aligned with celestial events, akin to the astronomical orientations of earlier pyramids, designed to facilitate the pharaoh's journey through the cosmos? Evidence from other New Kingdom tombs supports the possibility of secrecy. Tombs of queens, princes, and high officials occasionally contain concealed shafts, hidden recesses, or undeciphered inscriptions. If Ramses II's burial strategy mirrored or exceeded these practices, it raises profound questions about what might still lie undiscovered beneath the sands of Thebes. Were some tombs deliberately erased from memory or obscured through architectural cunning? And if so, what does that suggest about the pharaoh's understanding of security, spirituality, and the manipulation of perception? Beyond practical concealment, the hidden tombs of Ramses II may also carry symbolic meaning. The New Kingdom elite frequently employed the principle of duality: life and death, visible and hidden, mortal and divine. Concealed chambers may not simply be vaults. They may represent metaphysical spaces, ritual sanctuaries, or points of contact with the divine realm. Could the hidden aspect itself have been an essential component of the pharaoh's afterlife journey, a reflection of the secret knowledge imparted only to the king and his most trusted priests? Modern technology offers tantalizing possibilities for discovery. Ground-penetrating radar, 3D mapping, and remote sensing have revealed voids and anomalies in other ancient tombs, demonstrating that the ancient Egyptians were masters of spatial deception and architectural subtlety. If applied extensively to Ramses II's necropolis, these methods may yet reveal chambers that have eluded explorers for centuries. And yet, even with modern tools, the ultimate purpose and contents of such hidden spaces remain speculative, an enigma that invites both careful study and imaginative contemplation. The mystery is compounded by Ramses II himself. His extraordinary reign, legendary monuments, and extensive inscriptions suggest a man deeply concerned with legacy, divinity, and eternity. If secret tombs exist, they would not merely store objects. They would embody the pharaoh's vision of immortality, a carefully constructed bridge between mortal achievement and eternal order. Could these hidden chambers hold insights into rituals, governance, or religious practice that have been lost to time? Might they contain treasures, ceremonial implements, or texts that could transform our understanding of the New Kingdom? As we imagine descending into the darkness of undiscovered corridors, navigating narrow shafts and silent chambers, one is struck by the scale of human ambition and ingenuity. Ramses II sought to master not only the political and spiritual realms of his era, but also the very mechanics of time and memory, constructing tombs that endure as both monument and mystery. And yet, for all the stones laid and inscriptions carved, the full extent of his funerary network remains elusive, suspended between history and speculation. Standing at the threshold of these hidden tombs, contemplating their silent depths, we are confronted with a question that lingers like the faint echo of footsteps in a long-forgotten corridor. How much of Ramses II's final resting place remains unseen, untouched, and unknowable? What truths, treasures, or rituals lie silently beneath the sands, preserving secrets that may forever challenge our understanding of one of history's most remarkable pharaohs? And perhaps, in the quiet shadow of these hidden chambers, we glimpse the essence of ancient Egypt itself, a civilization where the boundary between the visible and the concealed, the mortal and the divine, was never fixed, and where mysteries endure as eternally as the stones themselves. From the silent corridors of Ramses, the second's hidden tombs, where shadows stretch across stone and sand, has claimed centuries of memory, we turn to a quieter, more perplexing phenomenon, one that challenges our understanding of ancient Egypt's care for its dead. Across the necropolises of Thebes, Saqqara, and beyond, archaeologists have documented a subtle but disconcerting pattern, the shifting of mummies. Over centuries, some royal and elite burials appear to have been moved, rearranged, or even secretly relocated. What drove these interventions, and what secrets might they conceal beneath layers of sand, stone, and time? The phenomenon is both historical and physical. Tombs once carefully constructed to hold a pharaoh, noble or priest, now reveal anomalies. Mummies that should have rested undisturbed for millennia are discovered displaced, sometimes within secondary tombs or in communal caches. Sometimes sarcophagi are found empty, their contents removed, only to appear centuries later in an unexpected location. For centuries, scholars assumed looting as the primary cause. Yet closer examination reveals patterns that defy simple explanation. Some relocations occurred long after tombs were initially sealed, suggesting organized, ritualistic, or administrative intervention rather than opportunistic theft. The Valley of the Kings offers a striking example. During the Third Intermediate Period, priests relocated many royal mummies from deteriorating or threatened tombs into hidden caches, such as the famous Deir el-Bahari and Tomb DB 320. This act, ostensibly protective, transformed burial sites into a labyrinth of movement, mixing kings, queens, and high officials in ways that complicate historical records. The practical motive is clear: safeguard sacred remains from tomb robbers. Yet the act of moving these mummies also raises profound questions about ancient priorities, beliefs, and the interplay between security and sanctity. Was the preservation of the body purely physical, or did these movements carry symbolic or ritual significance, aligning the deceased with new spiritual pathways? Even more mysterious are cases where the shifting appears to defy documentation. Certain mummies, discovered in unexpected locations centuries later, show no historical record of relocation. Could these have been moved clandestinely, perhaps for esoteric or political reasons? Some theories suggest that ritualistic relocation may have been intended to reinforce cosmic order or to ensure the deceased's continued influence in the spiritual realm. Could priests have believed that moving a pharaoh's body to a different tomb or hidden chamber would enhance divine protection, ensure alignment with celestial forces, or reconnect the king with specific sacred landscapes? The physical evidence itself is compelling. In some tombs, the bedding, wrappings, and funerary goods appear disrupted without signs of violence. Stone blocking, sealed doors, and hidden passages were bypassed or reopened, yet the mummies remain remarkably intact. Could this indicate specialized knowledge of embalming, transport, and tomb engineering, designed to preserve the sanctity of the body while altering its resting place? And if so, what secrets about Egyptian mortuary science, ritual precision, and architectural ingenuity might still lie undiscovered in these hidden operations? The shifting of mummies also suggests a dynamic interplay between time and memory. Over centuries, dynasties changed, priests rose and fell, and tombs succumbed to natural decay or political upheaval. In response, sacred remains were moved not only to protect them, but perhaps to reassert authority, legitimacy, or continuity in the spiritual and temporal order. Could the relocation of a royal mummy have been a statement of power, a deliberate act to rewrite the narrative of kingship, or a ceremonial practice designed to align the deceased with new religious insights? And what of the mummies that were never recorded? Those that vanished from known tombs, leaving only empty sarcophagi and whispered speculation. Modern technology has brought new dimensions to the mystery. CT scans, radiocarbon dating, and DNA analysis reveal anomalies in age, injury, and preservation that do not always match historical expectations. In some cases, mummies found in secondary locations show evidence of rewrapping, repositioning, or restoration using methods unfamiliar to the era of original burial. Were these restorations practical, ritualistic, or symbolic? Could they reflect attempts to correct perceived spiritual disruptions or to renew the deceased's protective power? Each discovery adds layers of intrigue, deepening the sense that the shifting of mummies was neither random nor solely pragmatic. Moreover, the shifting phenomenon challenges our assumptions about permanence in Egyptian burial practices. We often imagine tombs as eternal monuments, sealed against the ravages of time and human interference. Yet the repeated movement of mummies demonstrates a fluidity of practice, an acknowledgement that sacred order requires active maintenance. Might these movements have been part of an ongoing, millennia-long conversation between the living and the dead, between human custodians and divine forces? Could the careful management of remains across generations reveal a worldview in which time, place, and sanctity were intimately intertwined, a spiritual network as dynamic as it was deliberate? As we consider these patterns, we also confront the human element. Priests, officials, and tomb workers were entrusted with sacred responsibilities, moving and preserving bodies with care, precision, and secrecy. Each relocation represents choices, rituals, and ethical judgments now invisible to us. How did they decide which mummies to move, where to place them, and what objects or inscriptions to accompany them? And, in performing these acts, did they themselves understand the full spiritual consequences, or were they guided by tradition, intuition, or divine command? Standing before a displaced mummy, wrapped and bound in linen, eyes closed for eternity, one cannot help but reflect on the layers of history and intention embedded in that silent figure. Each movement, each hidden relocation, is a testament to the Egyptians' intricate understanding of death, preservation, and continuity. Yet, it is also a puzzle, a question that transcends archaeology and enters the realm of the unknown. How many mummies remain out of place, hidden in undiscovered chambers, or carried across centuries by invisible hands? And what might these silent travelers still reveal about the beliefs, rituals, and cosmic ambitions of one of history's most extraordinary civilizations? From the careful relocations of royal mummies, where tombs and corridors conceal both intent and ritual, we now turn to a more elusive phenomenon, one that blurs the boundaries between history, legend, and the human imagination: the curse of the Pharaohs. Across centuries, stories of misfortune, sudden death, and inexplicable illness have followed those who dared disturb the eternal resting places of Egypt's kings. These tales, steeped in both fascination and fear, invite us to explore not only the archaeological record, but also the intangible aura of the pharaoh's tombs, the silent power that seemed to linger long after the ceremonies of embalming and interment had ended. The notion of a curse first captured the modern imagination with the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. Howard Carter's excavation, meticulous and careful, revealed a treasure beyond measure: gold, jewelry, ceremonial items, and the young king's ornate sarcophagus. Yet soon after, the deaths of certain expedition members were linked in sensational accounts to a mysterious force said to protect the tomb. While skeptics point to disease, infection, and coincidence, the persistence of the stories suggests a deeper cultural resonance. Could these legends reflect more than fear of physical danger? Might they echo an ancient worldview in which the disturbance of sacred space had consequences beyond the visible, affecting spirit, fortune, and cosmic balance? The ancient Egyptians themselves left subtle warnings. Tomb walls, inscriptions, and ritual texts occasionally include admonitions to protect the dead, invoking deities to punish those who desecrate the sanctity of burial. The wording varies, sometimes practical, at other times poetic, but the underlying message is consistent. The pharaoh's resting place is not to be entered lightly. Were these admonitions intended merely to deter tomb robbers, or did they encode a spiritual principle, an understanding that the living's actions could disturb the equilibrium of death and eternity? And if so, might the modern tales of misfortune reflect echoes of those ancient beliefs, resonating across millennia in ways we scarcely comprehend? Some examples are compelling, though often ambiguous. Members of early 20th century expeditions reported sudden illnesses, unexplained accidents, and unexpected deaths following interactions with royal tombs. In Khufu 62, Tutankhamun's resting place, a number of those involved in the opening of the burial chamber succumbed to pneumonia, infections, or other ailments within months or years. Were these simply coincidences amplified by sensational reporting, or could there have been unseen environmental hazards, bacteria, fungi, or toxic molds that lingered in sealed chambers? Even in modern times, archaeologists proceed with extreme caution, aware that tombs can harbor spores, bacteria, or chemical residues that pose real, measurable risks. Yet the phenomenon extends beyond physical explanations. Across time and culture, the stories surrounding disturbed tombs share striking similarities. A sense of immediate misfortune, the sudden appearance of illness or death, and a pervasive aura of dread surrounding sacred spaces. Could these shared narratives indicate a psychological or cultural force, a reflection of the profound respect and fear inspired by the pharaoh's eternal authority? The act of opening a tomb, removing sarcophagi, or touching objects that were consecrated centuries earlier may carry a symbolic weight, an interaction with a past deliberately designed to be protected, hidden, and preserved. The architecture of the tombs themselves enhances this sense of danger. Narrow corridors, steep descents, hidden chambers, and intricate seals create an environment where even the most meticulous explorer is vulnerable. Beyond the practical hazards, rockfalls, suffocating heat, or unstable stone, there is the intangible tension of enclosed space, the psychological impression that one is stepping into a realm beyond ordinary time. Could this heightened perception, combined with the stress of excavation and the weight of history, account for many of the cursed incidents? And yet, the coincidences continue to provoke curiosity. Why do certain tombs seem to attract stories of misfortune more than others? And why does the legend of a curse persist even after scientific explanations are offered? Beyond accidents and disease, some scholars speculate that the curse may reflect a symbolic mechanism designed by the ancient Egyptians themselves. By promoting the idea that tombs were sacred and dangerous to disturb, these warnings could have served as psychological deterrents, ensuring that the pharaoh's bodies and treasures remained protected. The curse, in this interpretation, is not supernatural but profoundly effective, a societal and spiritual contract between the living and the dead, enforcing reverence through both fear and ritual observance. Could it be that the ancient Egyptians, masters of ceremony and symbolism, intentionally cultivated this aura of danger, weaving into their mortuary practices a lasting psychological force that transcended centuries? Even today, the curse of the pharaohs continues to inspire fascination, from books and films to documentaries that explore the intersection of archaeology, legend, and the unexplained. Researchers, aware of the documented physical risks, proceed with caution. Historians, aware of cultural memory, approach the topic with measured curiosity, and the public, captivated by the idea of ancient retribution, remains drawn to the mystery. In this way, the curse bridges past and present, fact and story, human ambition and the enduring authority of the pharaohs themselves. As we imagine the tombs once sealed in darkness, the sarcophagi resting undisturbed for millennia, and the treasures that gleam only when sunlight penetrates secret chambers, one cannot help but feel the presence of something larger than stone and gold. The curse may be fear, biology, coincidence, or cultural projection, but it may also be a lingering echo of a civilization that understood death, divinity, and the maintenance of cosmic order in ways that remain just beyond our comprehension. And so, standing metaphorically at the threshold of these sacred spaces, considering the warnings inscribed on walls, the careful preservation of tombs, and the whispered tales of misfortune, we are left with a question that transcends history and legend. Is the curse of the pharaohs merely a human construct, or does it hint at a hidden order, a principle of consequence encoded by the ancients themselves? And as explorers, historians, and dreamers continue to open tombs and uncover treasures, might there still be forces, seen or unseen, that guard the pharaoh's eternal dominion? From the eerie warnings of the pharaoh's curses, where the disturbance of tombs could invoke misfortune, both physical and symbolic, we now shift our gaze to a far quieter, yet equally perplexing enigma. One etched not in sand or stone, but upon the walls of a temple, illuminated by the fading light of history. At the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, northern Egypt, intricate reliefs adorn the stone ceilings and walls, a visual symphony of gods, pharaohs, and ceremonial iconography. Among these carvings, some observers have discerned a peculiar motif, a serpent-like object within a bulbous structure, held by divine figures, radiating what appears to be streams of energy or light. This is often referred to as the Dendera light, a mysterious image that has sparked debate, curiosity, and fascination for decades. The temple itself, built primarily during the Ptolemaic period between 125 BC and 60 AD, is a marvel of Egyptian architecture and religious symbolism. Hathor, goddess of love, music, and cosmic order, was venerated here, her sanctuary resplendent with reliefs that depict celestial and terrestrial harmony. Yet amid these conventional scenes of divine ritual, the Dendera light stands apart. Its unusual form, a bulb or tube containing a coiled snake, supported by a figure that some interpret as a priest or deity, does not conform neatly to the typical lexicon of Egyptian iconography. Could this depiction reflect an aspect of religious symbolism now lost to us, or does it hint at knowledge that transcended the common visual motifs of the era? Mainstream Egyptologists generally interpret the image as symbolic. The bulb may represent a lotus flower or a djed pillar, the coiled snake a common symbol of energy, renewal, or divine power. The bulb and snake together could signify the illumination of divine knowledge or the cyclical nature of life and death, consistent with the Egyptians' preoccupation with cosmic order. Yet for those willing to look beyond conventional readings, the relief raises more tantalizing questions. Some propose that the image represents a form of ancient technology, a primitive electrical device or lighting system lost to history. Could the priests of Hathor have employed an advanced understanding of energy, harnessed in ways now obscured by time and cultural loss? Adding to the intrigue are the architectural features surrounding the relief. The crypts beneath the temple contain chambers and passageways whose alignment and construction suggest careful consideration of airflow, acoustics, and perhaps even illumination. The light bulb carving is positioned above a niche that could theoretically serve as a conduit for light or other forms of energy. Could this placement have been intentional, designed to focus attention on the image during ritual ceremonies? Or might it hint at a functional purpose, integrating visual symbolism with practical illumination? And if so, what methods or materials might have been used in an era ostensibly devoid of modern electricity? Historical accounts of the temple also hint at practical experimentation. Graffiti, inscriptions, and later notes from travelers suggest that the ancients were deeply engaged with optics, reflection, and light within sacred spaces. Mirrors, polished metals, and reflective surfaces were commonly employed in Egyptian ritual to enhance the perception of divine presence. Could the Dendera light depict such phenomena, abstracted into symbolic form? Or is there a more esoteric meaning, an encoded representation of spiritual illumination, the flow of cosmic energy from deity to pharaoh, and the eternal interplay between human and divine? Fringe theories have fueled much speculation. Some suggest that the relief shows an ancient form of electric lamp with the serpent as a filament and the bulb as a protective enclosure, hinting at technology that predates recorded history. Others propose connections to knowledge of energy and light harnessed in ceremonial contexts, intentionally veiled within symbolic art to protect secrets from the uninitiated. While mainstream scholarship cautions against interpreting the relief literally, the striking resemblance to modern electrical forms captures the imagination, reminding us that the Egyptians' genius often blurred the line between symbolic abstraction and technical understanding. Yet, perhaps the most compelling aspect of the Dendera light is its context. It sits within a sacred space devoted to the goddess of cosmic balance, surrounded by depictions of divine and celestial order. The image is not isolated. It exists within a narrative of creation, regeneration, and ritual practice. Could the light itself be a metaphor for spiritual illumination, the divine spark that animates both the universe and the pharaoh's souls? Does the depiction encode principles of energy, transformation, or perception, linking the material and spiritual realms in a manner that continues to elude modern interpretation? Modern investigations have applied photography, 3D scanning, and comparative analysis to the reliefs. Yet the fundamental mystery persists. The image continues to defy a definitive explanation, straddling the line between religious symbolism, cultural expression, and speculative technological insight. It challenges us to reconsider our assumptions about ancient knowledge, creativity, and the capacity for sophisticated conceptual thought in an era thousands of years removed from our own. Could it be that we are glimpsing, through stone and pigment, a fragment of a worldview that harmonized ritual, symbolism, and practical experimentation in ways we are only beginning to appreciate? Standing before the relief, one is struck by the stillness of the temple, the cool shadows beneath carved beams, and the silent authority of Hathor's guardianship. The Dendera light invites reflection not only on what the Egyptians built or believed, but also on what remains hidden, perhaps intentionally, in their visual language. It asks us to ponder the nature of knowledge, visible, hidden, and encoded, and how the interplay of art, ritual, and science might have been more sophisticated than we can yet measure. And so, as we imagine the priests of Dendera performing rituals beneath these carvings, their chants echoing through stone corridors, we are left with an open question that endures across the millennia. What truths, insights, or technologies might the Dendera light represent, hidden in plain sight, awaiting discovery by those who can decipher the language of both symbol and stone? In contemplating the image, we confront the essence of Egyptian ingenuity, a civilization where the sacred and the mysterious are inseparable, and where mysteries continue to glow, faint but persistent, through the corridors of history. From the ethereal glow of the Dendera light, where symbols of energy and divinity seem to illuminate the hidden knowledge of the ancients, we turn now to a monument whose very name evokes shadow and enigma. the Black Pyramid of Amenemhat III. Situated in Dashur, south of modern-day Cairo, this pyramid once rose as a testament to the power and ambition of Egypt's Middle Kingdom. Today, it stands in ruin, a spectral silhouette against the desert sky, its once precise angles softened by millennia of wind, rain, and human curiosity. Yet within its crumbling core lies a story that is far from fully revealed. A story of architectural innovation, royal ambition, and a mystery that has confounded historians for centuries. Amenemhat III, who ruled in the 19th century BC, was a pharaoh of considerable achievement. Under his reign, Egypt experienced economic growth, expansive mining operations, and the flourishing of arts and literature. His pyramid, known as the Black Pyramid, due to the dark hue of the mud brick and limestone that once composed its outer layers, was conceived as both tomb and symbol, designed to channel the king's authority into eternity. Unlike the towering Great Pyramid of Giza, Amenemhat's design reflects a meticulous engineering sophistication. Interior chambers, corridors, and subterranean galleries configured to protect the king's body, treasure, and divine essence from intrusion. Yet, the Black Pyramid presents enigmas that extend beyond architecture. From the beginning, it suffered structural challenges. Parts of the superstructure collapsed long ago, leaving interior chambers exposed to decay and erosion. Archaeologists have noted the presence of intricate underground galleries, passages that seem to defy conventional design, with unexpected turns and hidden chambers whose purpose remains uncertain. Were these purely defensive, intended to thwart tomb robbers, or did they hold a symbolic significance, mirroring celestial alignments or metaphysical principles? Some suggest that the pyramid's complexity reflects an esoteric understanding of cosmic balance, an embodiment of the pharaoh's journey from mortality to divine status. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Black Pyramid is the presence of subterranean chambers that are unusually elaborate for the period. Excavations have revealed intricate layouts, with corridors leading to decoy rooms, sealed vaults, and possibly lost burial chambers. While Amenemhat III's sarcophagus has never been conclusively found, remnants of funerary equipment, traces of inscriptions, and evidence of ceremonial practice indicate that the pyramid was designed with extraordinary care. Why then did the structure fail so catastrophically over time? Was it simply the consequence of engineering miscalculations in mud brick construction, or did ancient builders intentionally experiment with methods that pushed the boundaries of their materials, leaving the pyramid vulnerable yet symbolically potent? The Black Pyramid also raises questions about ritual and symbolism. Reliefs and inscriptions recovered from surrounding mortuary temples suggest a deliberate alignment with celestial phenomena. Rising stars, solstices, and perhaps even mythic narratives linked to the underworld god Osiris. Could the layout of interior chambers reflect an understanding of astronomy or the pharaoh's intended spiritual journey, mapping his passage from life into the afterlife? And if so, what secrets of religious practice and cosmology might have been encoded in spaces now obscured by collapse and time? Speculative interpretations abound, though evidence is often fragmentary. Some researchers propose that the pyramid may have housed hidden repositories of knowledge or ritual objects, items that could illuminate Middle Kingdom religious practice beyond what is currently documented. Others suggest that the repeated failures of mud brick construction reflect an ancient experimentation with architectural principles that were ultimately ahead of their time, techniques that, if perfected, might have rivaled the structural longevity of the Old Kingdom pyramids. Could Amenemhat III himself have sought to harmonize practical engineering, symbolic expression, and spiritual safeguarding in ways that modern eyes are only beginning to appreciate? Even the pyramid's exterior evokes mystery. Once encased in smooth limestone, the Black Pyramid would have gleamed under the Egyptian sun, its dark core hidden beneath a radiant facade. Archaeological surveys suggest that the choice of materials and coloration was deliberate, possibly conveying symbolic meaning, black as a reflection of the fertile soil of the Nile, the regenerative power of death, or the pharaoh's association with the eternal cycles of night and rebirth. Could these visual cues have served both spiritual and political purposes, reinforcing the king's authority while guiding the souls of the deceased toward the afterlife? Today, the pyramid lies partially collapsed, its corridors partially excavated, its chambers vulnerable to both time and human intervention. Yet even in ruin, it conveys a palpable sense of mystery, a testament to ambition, devotion, and the interplay of visible and hidden forces. The Black Pyramid is not merely a tomb, it is a message cast in stone and brick, a narrative of power, cosmic aspiration, and the precariousness of human endeavor. Standing before its skeletal remains, one is confronted with the tangible presence of history and the intangible echo of questions that remain unanswered. As we imagine Amenemhat III surveying his grand project, planners and priests moving stones, laying corridors, and inscribing sacred texts, we sense the care, ingenuity, and ambition invested in this monumental work. And yet, with its collapsed chambers and hidden corridors, the pyramid continues to challenge our understanding. How much knowledge of ritual, architecture, or even cosmology was encoded within its walls, lost now to time? Could future excavations uncover evidence that redefines our understanding of Middle Kingdom engineering and religious practice, revealing secrets that even the pharaoh himself intended to keep hidden? The Black Pyramid of Amenemhat III invites us to contemplate the convergence of ambition, symbolism, and impermanence. It stands as both a tomb and a question, a monument to human ingenuity and the enduring mysteries of the past. And as explorers, historians, and dreamers continue to examine its shadowed corridors, we are left to wonder, what remains hidden beneath the ruins, awaiting rediscovery? And how much of the pharaoh's vision has been preserved only in the silence of the desert and the imagination of those who gaze upon it? From the shadowed corridors and enigmatic chambers of Amenemhat III's Black Pyramid, where architecture, ritual, and hidden intent intertwine, we turn now to a figure whose visage continues to captivate and perplex historians and enthusiasts alike: Akhenaten, the revolutionary pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. His reign, beginning around 1353 BC, is remembered for radical religious transformation, but it is his physical appearance, immortalized in countless statues, reliefs, and portraits, that has sparked questions transcending conventional history. Akhenaten's likeness, with elongated features, narrow shoulders, and pronounced hips, seems to defy the aesthetic norms of both his predecessors and successors, leading some to whisper that we are confronted with something otherworldly, a human figure whose form challenges our expectations of anatomy and identity. In temples and tombs, Akhenaten is depicted in intimate, often domestic settings with his family, his queen, Nefertiti, their children at play, scenes imbued with tenderness and ritual. Yet the same images present a pharaoh whose head is elongated, his face narrow, lips full, and limbs unusually stylized. Scholars have debated whether these depictions represent deliberate artistic exaggeration, symbolic abstraction, or reflections of an actual medical condition. Could Akhenaten's unique form have been a conscious statement, linking his body to the divine Aten, the sun disk he elevated above all other gods? Or might it hint at a genetic anomaly, a rare condition now lost to time, shaping how the pharaoh was both perceived and memorialized? Akhenaten's alien appearance cannot be divorced from the spiritual revolution he initiated. Rejecting the traditional pantheon of Egyptian deities, he declared the Aten, the radiant sun disk, the sole god of Egypt, relocating the capital to Akhenaten, a newly founded city. Art during this period became softer, more fluid, more intimate, emphasizing family life, sunlight, and the pharaoh's connection to the divine. Some researchers argue that the stylized elongation of Akhenaten's body was a deliberate visual metaphor intended to signify his union with Aten, the pharaoh's physical form echoing the god's all-encompassing presence. Yet for others, the image provokes a deeper question. Could Akhenaten's appearance reflect knowledge, observation, or influence that is now obscure, an intentional departure from human norms meant to signal something extraordinary? The physical evidence is both tantalizing and frustrating. Statues from Amarna, the city of Akhenaten, preserve elongated skulls, extended torsos, and delicate, almost fragile limbs. Reliefs depict him performing sacred rituals, receiving the rays of the Aten, and interacting with his daughters in ways that seem unusually naturalistic for Egyptian art. These details suggest an intimate attention to form, as if the artists were recording more than mere symbolism, they were documenting something real. Yet the degree of exaggeration varies, and no consensus has emerged to fully explain the origins of Akhenaten's distinctive features. Were these purely symbolic devices, or do they hint at a biological reality now shrouded in mystery? Speculative interpretations abound. Some propose that Akhenaten was afflicted with a genetic disorder, such as Marfan syndrome or Froehlich syndrome, which might account for his elongated limbs, narrow face, and unusual skeletal structure. Others suggest that artistic convention during his reign was intentionally extreme, emphasizing spiritual transcendence over physical realism. Fringe theories even venture further, speculating about extraterrestrial contact or the pharaoh as a hybrid being, though these ideas remain outside the bounds of mainstream scholarship. Still, the persistence of the question underscores a deeper fascination. Why would one pharaoh's image differ so radically from all others? And why would this difference be so meticulously recorded in enduring stone and pigment? Beyond the art itself, Akhenaten's burial and remains deepen the enigma. The pharaoh's final resting place has never been definitively identified, and skeletal remains attributed to him are fragmentary, inconclusive, or missing entirely. Without direct evidence, much of the mystery of his appearance is filtered through artistic representation, which both preserves and transforms his form. The interplay between symbol and reality, between visual metaphor and possible biology, creates a space for speculation that continues to intrigue Egyptologists and the public alike. Was the pharaoh's alienized visage an intentional emblem of divine connection, a medical reality, or a coded message about his revolutionary vision for Egypt? Akhenaten's alien appearance also resonates with the spiritual and political upheaval of his time. By redefining the relationship between king, deity, and people, he simultaneously destabilized centuries of religious practice and architectural tradition. Perhaps the physical distortion in his images mirrors the conceptual distortion he introduced. A world turned inward on the Aten, where sunlight, divinity, and the human form were interwoven in ways previously unimagined. Could his visual otherness have served as a tool, reinforcing his revolutionary authority and signaling to observers that Egypt had entered a new era of cosmic alignment and spiritual transformation? Today, standing before the remnants of Akhenaten, one can imagine the sun illuminating statues and reliefs, casting long shadows across faces both familiar and strange. Akhenaten's image persists in the carved stone, the painted plaster, and the whispered fascination of scholars who have tried and failed to fully reconcile his form with our understanding of human anatomy. His appearance, preserved yet mysterious, reminds us that the boundaries of history are porous, that the past contains surprises that challenge expectation, and that a single individual can reshape the perception of an entire civilization. And so, as we consider Akhenaten's alien visage, its elongated skull, its fluid limbs, its enigmatic presence, we are left with a profound question that endures across millennia. What did the Egyptians themselves perceive in their pharaoh? And what might this image, straddling the boundary between reality and representation, reveal about knowledge, power, and the mysterious possibilities of human form? In studying Akhenaten, we confront a vision both familiar and strange. A pharaoh whose appearance continues to inspire awe, debate, and wonder, inviting us to ponder the hidden truths that may still lie buried beneath the sands of time. From the elongated forms and enigmatic visage of Akhenaten, whose very body challenges our understanding of what is human and what might transcend the ordinary, we turn now to a subtler yet no less intriguing enigma: the secret use of mercury in ancient Egypt. Mercury, a silvery, liquid metal that gleams like quicksilver in candlelight, appears intermittently in archaeological contexts, suggesting knowledge that was both practical and possibly mystical. Found in traces within tombs, mummification materials, and certain ceremonial artifacts, mercury presents a puzzle. How and why did the Egyptians employ this elusive element, and what secrets might it conceal? The properties of mercury alone are extraordinary. At room temperature, it remains liquid, reflecting light with a polished sheen unlike any other metal in the known world. It flows, moves, and transforms in ways that seem almost alive, a substance as mysterious as the Nile itself in its unpredictability. To handle it safely, the ancients would have required careful observation, an understanding of its behavior, and perhaps a reverence born from its singular nature. Its presence in burial practices and artifacts raises questions. Did it serve a ritual purpose, a preservative function, or was it part of an experimental alchemy, a means of manipulating the material world in ways now lost to history? Archaeological findings provide tantalizing hints. Analysis of certain mummies has revealed traces of mercury in embalming materials, suggesting it may have been used in preservation or in spiritual preparation for the afterlife. Could this reflect a chemical understanding, an early method of slowing decay, or perhaps a symbolic act? Mercury as a fluid, transformative element representing the journey of the soul, moving between life, death, and eternity. In tombs and temples, minute deposits of the metal hint at ceremonial or possibly technological applications, as if the pharaohs and their priests had discovered a substance that could mediate between the earthly and the divine. One particularly striking example comes from funerary contexts associated with high-ranking officials and royalty. Tiny traces of mercury were found in coatings applied to coffins or within ritual vessels, sparking speculation that its role was deliberately concealed. Unlike gold or silver, metals whose properties and value were widely understood, mercury seems almost secretive in nature, elusive, mobile, dangerous to touch, and difficult to store. Did the Egyptians recognize these characteristics? And if so, did they imbue the metal with mystical significance, understanding that its liquid, reflective surface symbolized the ephemeral boundary between worlds? Mainstream explanations often focus on practical uses. Mercury may have been employed for its preservative qualities, a means of slowing decomposition, or even in early cosmetic or medicinal applications. Historical records from later periods suggest awareness of its toxicity and transformative properties, hinting that knowledge of its effects could have originated far earlier than previously assumed. Yet this raises further questions. If mercury was employed with such care, why do so few records or instructions survive? Was its use guarded as esoteric knowledge, restricted to the highest echelons of priesthood and royalty, concealed deliberately from the uninitiated? Speculative theories naturally follow. Some suggest that mercury's reflective fluid quality made it a conduit for spiritual insight, a mirror to the divine that could assist in rituals of divination or transcendence. Could it have been employed in sacred rites to enhance vision or perception of realms beyond the material? Others propose more technological possibilities. Might it have been part of early attempts at metalworking, or even a misunderstood precursor to chemical experimentation, its volatile properties observed but never fully harnessed? The recurring appearance of mercury in tombs associated with powerful pharaohs and sacred sites implies a significance beyond mere coincidence. A carefully chosen tool, an agent in mysteries we can only glimpse through shards of evidence. Mercury's mysterious role extends to artistic and architectural applications as well. Some researchers have hypothesized that it may have been incorporated into pigments, reflective coatings, or even within the construction of sacred spaces to manipulate light, temperature, or perception. Imagine corridors of a tomb, sunlight reflecting off polished surfaces, metallic sheen catching the eye, guiding both body and spirit deeper into a ritualized journey. Could the Egyptians have understood more about the interplay of material and perception than we give them credit for? Yet, the evidence remains tantalizingly incomplete. Mercury is volatile, prone to evaporation and degradation over time, leaving only faint traces behind. What survives may be only a shadow of its historical use, a hint of practices lost to the sands and centuries. In contemplating its presence, we confront a pattern familiar in our exploration of Egypt's pharaohs, the combination of innovation, symbolism, and secrecy. Just as Akhenaten's body challenges our understanding of the human, Mercury challenges our understanding of the material world and the limits of ancient knowledge. As we stand before the remnants of tombs and temples, imagining the priests and alchemists handling this silver liquid with care, we sense an intersection of science, ritual, and mystery. Mercury, in its reflective, flowing form, embodies the elusiveness of knowledge itself, a reminder that not all secrets are preserved in stone or papyrus. Some remain in the hidden chemical traces, waiting to be interpreted, understood, and perhaps marveled at once more. And so, the secret use of mercury invites us to question the boundaries of ancient understanding. Was it a practical agent, a sacred symbol, a tool of experimentation, or something far more enigmatic, whose full purpose remains just beyond our grasp? In following its faint traces, we are reminded that the pharaoh's Egypt was a world where the material and the mystical intertwined, where every substance could carry both power and meaning, and where the smallest shimmer of silver might illuminate truths that remain concealed beneath the sands of time. From the silvery traces of mercury, whose reflective surface hints at a knowledge both chemical and mystical, we now turn to a more tangible yet equally enigmatic element of Egypt's pharaonic legacy: the hidden weapons of the pharaohs. Far beyond the golden adornments, the ceremonial regalia, and the towering monuments, there lies evidence of implements that speak of protection, power, and perhaps secret technologies that have left only whispers behind. These weapons, buried alongside rulers or concealed within sacred spaces, are more than instruments of war. They are symbols, safeguards, and in some cases, enigmas that challenge our understanding of ancient Egyptian ingenuity. The surviving artifacts are varied: finely wrought daggers of meteoric iron, bronze swords etched with inscriptions, and arrowheads whose form suggests both artistry and precision. One particularly intriguing example is the dagger found in the tomb of Tutankhamun, its blade composed not of earthly iron but of a rare meteorite, its celestial origin confirmed through modern analysis. Inlaid with gold and encased in delicate wood, this weapon is both ceremonial and functional, a fusion of earthly craftsmanship and cosmic material. What purpose did it serve beyond the symbolic? Was it intended to protect the pharaoh in the afterlife, to confer a metaphysical advantage, or perhaps even to signal knowledge of celestial forces now lost to time? Weapons were not confined to ceremonial display. Tomb inscriptions, reliefs, and historical texts describe armaments imbued with divine attributes, sometimes described as gifts from the gods themselves. The pharaoh's mace, spear, or bow could carry more than physical force. They could embody divine wrath, channel protective energy, or act as conduits between the king and his patron deities. Could these descriptions be purely symbolic, or do they hint at a deeper understanding of materials, geometry, and the forces harnessed in both combat and ritual? When we examine the hidden compartments and secret caches within pyramids and temples, we encounter objects whose purpose remains ambiguous, suggesting a deliberate concealment of knowledge reserved for those initiated into the mysteries of pharaonic power. Some weapons challenge conventional archaeology in ways that border on the mysterious. Advanced metallurgy, alloys unknown in contemporary civilizations, and rare minerals appear in certain implements, suggesting experimentation or knowledge beyond the ordinary. Could the pharaohs have understood principles of hardness, resonance, or energy transmission in ways that allowed them to create superior armaments? Are there designs now lost that might have conferred tactical or symbolic advantages in both life and death? The combination of craftsmanship and secrecy implies that these weapons were not merely practical. They were repositories of esoteric knowledge, perhaps blending ritual, symbolism, and technology in ways still largely beyond our grasp. In certain temples, reliefs depict pharaohs wielding weapons of astonishing form, sometimes elongated, exaggerated, or embedded with symbols. These representations may not correspond to standard military tools, but instead serve as coded messages, instruments capable of warding off spiritual enemies, controlling elements, or marking sacred space. Scholars debate whether such depictions are purely symbolic, metaphorical, or reflective of actual devices whose true mechanics remain hidden. Could some of these weapons have been designed to harness natural phenomena, fire, reflection, or even sound, as part of defensive or ceremonial systems? The context of burial and concealment adds further intrigue. Many weapons are found in tombs carefully placed near the body of the ruler, suggesting a dual role: protection in this life and in the afterlife. The pharaohs, after all, were believed to continue ruling beyond death, their souls needing both guardianship and means of asserting power in a spiritual realm. Could the hidden weapons have functioned as both symbols and tools, ensuring that even in death, the king's authority and protection remained intact? And if some of these implements were deliberately hidden, what knowledge or power was deemed too potent or dangerous for common understanding? Speculative theories arise when we consider accounts of weapons that seem to defy contemporary expectations. Tales of daggers that never tarnish, bows that strike with unerring force, or objects that emit light or heat raise questions about the interplay of material, craft, and ritual. Were these descriptions metaphorical exaggerations, spiritual allegories, or records of real devices employing technologies or materials now lost? In some cases, comparisons with artifacts across civilizations hint at shared knowledge, trade networks, and experimentation that might explain rare metals, alloys, or designs, yet the full extent of their capabilities remains elusive. Even the act of concealment itself becomes part of the mystery. Many weapons were placed within secret chambers, behind false walls, or beneath layers of stone, suggesting a deliberate effort to control access and knowledge. Such care implies that these implements were not merely functional, but imbued with a significance that demanded secrecy. Did the pharaohs and their advisors understand the power of perception, the importance of rarity, and the potential influence of fear and awe? Could hidden weapons have served as deterrents, signaling mastery over forces both seen and unseen? As we consider the hidden weapons of Egypt's rulers, we confront a recurring theme in the pharaonic world: the blending of tangible and intangible power. Steel and bronze, meteoric iron and rare alloys, ceremonial symbolism and spiritual authority all coalesce in objects that are at once tools, emblems, and enigmas, They remind us that in the hands of a pharaoh, a weapon was never merely a weapon. It was a statement of cosmic order, divine favor, and human ingenuity. And so, as we imagine the hidden weapons lying in shadowed recesses, waiting for centuries to be discovered, we are left with an enduring question. How much did the pharaohs know of the forces they wielded, both material and mystical? Were these tools of defense, instruments of ritual, or remnants of secret technologies now lost beneath the sands? The truth, like the weapons themselves, remains partially concealed, inviting us to wonder what other mysteries of power, protection, and knowledge continue to lie hidden in the tombs, temples, and forgotten chambers of ancient Egypt. From the shadowed chambers where hidden weapons lay in silence, tools of both protection and power, we turn now to an even subtler, more ethereal aspect of pharaonic mastery, the secret name ritual. In the vast spiritual architecture of ancient Egypt, names were far more than labels. They were vessels of identity, keys to the soul, and conduits through which the living and the divine communicated. To know a person's secret name was to hold a measure of their power, to access the essence that persists beyond the flesh. And for a pharaoh, such knowledge could mean dominion over life, death, and eternity. The ritual itself remains shrouded in mystery, glimpsed only through fragmented inscriptions, temple reliefs, and cryptic references in funerary texts. In certain tombs, hieroglyphs suggest ceremonies in which the pharaoh's hidden name was uttered only in secrecy, spoken behind closed doors by priests, or recited into the darkness of subterranean sanctuaries. These names were not shared lightly. They were guarded as closely as the tombs themselves, as precious as any jewel or weapon interred alongside the ruler. To speak the true name of a king was to invoke their presence, to align oneself with their authority, or perhaps to summon forces invisible to ordinary perception. One of the most striking aspects of this ritual is its connection to immortality. Ancient texts describe the name as inseparable from the K, the life force, and the Ba, the unique personality that continues after death. Without the safeguarding of the secret name, the pharaoh risked fragmentation, a dispersal of essence that could weaken the soul in the afterlife. Could this be why so many names were deliberately erased from monuments, defaced by successors, or hidden beneath layers of stone? Was it an act of political expedience, spiritual precaution, or a combination of both? And if some names were lost or concealed, what forces, once accessible through their utterance, have remained dormant, hidden from human reach? Archaeological evidence adds subtle layers to the mystery. In certain temples, small chambers and niches, often unremarkable to the casual observer, appear to have been dedicated to preserving written forms of secret names. These inscriptions are sometimes obscured, carved in miniature, or hidden behind false walls, suggesting that the ancients understood both the fragility and the potency of this knowledge. Could the mere act of writing the name in a concealed space have been a form of protection, ensuring that the power it contained remained bound to sacred law and ritual? And if so, what might have been the consequences of misuse or exposure? The ritual's mechanics are almost entirely lost to history, but the implications ripple through other aspects of pharaonic practice. Comparisons with amulets, magical incantations, and the carefully orchestrated burial of sacred objects suggest that the secret name was part of a larger network of spiritual safeguards. When a pharaoh was crowned, married, or prepared for the tomb, the utterance or concealment of the name may have served as a stabilizing force, a spiritual anchor ensuring that the king's authority extended beyond the temporal world. Could it be that secret names were also instruments of influence, capable of shaping reality in subtle, unseen ways? Speculative interpretations extend even further. Some researchers propose that the secret name might have functioned as a key to hidden knowledge, unlocking esoteric wisdom encoded in temple geometry, star alignments, or the placement of sacred objects. Others suggest that the ritual may have involved auditory or vibrational components, a kind of ancient resonance practice where the spoken syllables themselves could affect both the material and spiritual realms. Could there have been a scientific awareness underlying the ritual, an understanding of sound, energy, and symbolism that has since been obscured by time? Political implications also intertwine with the spiritual. The erasure of names on monuments, the secrecy surrounding inscriptions, and the selective transmission of knowledge suggest that the ritual was tightly controlled. To reveal a pharaoh's secret name without authorization could be an act of ultimate subversion, a threat not just to legacy, but to cosmic balance. Were rival factions aware of this power? Could attempts to uncover or manipulate secret names explain certain periods of political upheaval, mysterious deaths, or the disappearance of monuments? These questions remain tantalizingly unanswered, leaving only shadows and conjecture in their wake. Yet for all its mystique, the ritual also reveals the Egyptians' profound understanding of identity, memory, and continuity. By safeguarding names, they preserved not only political authority, but also the metaphysical coherence of the world as they understood it. Every hidden syllable was a thread in the tapestry of cosmic order, a delicate balance between mortality and eternity. The pharaoh's true name, invisible to ordinary eyes, was at once a talisman, a safeguard, and a testament to the profound interplay of sound, spirit, and matter. In contemplating the secret name ritual, we are invited to peer into a world where knowledge itself is a form of power, where what is unspoken can shape reality as profoundly as what is acted upon, and where the boundaries between life, death, and memory are guarded with care. Just as hidden weapons protected the king's body and spirit, and Mercury may have mediated between the earthly and divine, so too did the secret name protect and empower the essence of the ruler, a force simultaneously fragile and unassailable. And so we are left to wonder, how many names, uttered in darkness, remain unknown to us? How much power was encoded in the syllables that have been lost to time? Could these hidden names, if fully understood, illuminate aspects of the pharaoh's authority, their knowledge, or their influence that we have yet to comprehend? In the quiet recesses of tombs and temples, amidst the remnants of objects, weapons, and symbols, the secret name endures as a reminder that in ancient Egypt, knowledge, identity, and power were intertwined in ways still beyond our reach, waiting silently for the curious and the patient to uncover their mysteries. From the sacred syllables of secret names, whispered only in shadowed chambers, we now step into a darker, more unsettling chapter of pharaonic lore. The myth of ritual cannibalism. The very idea evokes visceral imagery, a mingling of fear and fascination. But within the context of ancient Egypt, it is a mystery wrapped in layers of symbolism, misinterpretation, and selective historical record. To approach it is to navigate between the lines of legend, observation, and speculation, seeking meaning without succumbing to sensationalism. The origins of the myth are as elusive as the rituals themselves. Early classical writers, Greek and Roman travelers fascinated by Egypt's grandeur, described rites in which pharaohs or priests were said to consume flesh in sacred contexts, an act supposedly conferring divine power, immortality, or spiritual authority. Yet these accounts were often secondhand, filtered through cultural misunderstanding, exaggeration, or even deliberate myth-making. The Egyptians themselves left little direct evidence for such practices, though certain symbolic texts and images can be interpreted in multiple ways, their meaning contingent upon nuance and context. At the heart of the speculation lies the concept of absorption. In Egyptian belief, consuming or symbolically ingesting aspects of gods, kings, or sacred animals could be a way of internalizing power, wisdom, or divine essence. The pharaoh, after all, was not merely a political ruler, but a living deity on earth, the human manifestation of cosmic order. Could it be that references to consumption in rituals, often obscure, poetic, or metaphorical, were misread by outsiders as literal acts? Were symbolic offerings, funerary rites, or depictions of divine assimilation conflated with cannibalism, producing a myth that endured for centuries? Archaeological investigation offers fragments that fuel both scholarly curiosity and cautious debate. Certain tombs and temples reveal depictions of meat offerings, sacrificial animals, and elaborate banquet scenes. In some contexts, these images suggest ritualized consumption with spiritual implications, an act of communion between the living and the divine. Could these ceremonies, intended to nourish the ka of the deceased pharaoh, have been misconstrued as something more macabre? When we examine the language of hieroglyphs, we find that words for eating, consuming, or absorbing can carry layered meanings, encompassing both physical sustenance and metaphysical integration. Beyond symbolism, there is the question of isolated historical anecdotes. Some ancient texts recount rulers consuming portions of sacred animals or partaking in offerings meant to connect them to the divine. These accounts, sparse and geographically scattered, hint at an understanding of power and transformation that is difficult to quantify. Were such practices literal or allegorical? Did they represent a controlled ceremonial act designed to emphasize the king's unity with cosmic forces, rather than a form of cannibalism as understood by modern eyes? The myth is further complicated by cross-cultural misinterpretations. Greek historians, in particular, were fascinated by Egypt's longevity, complexity, and exotic rituals. Their descriptions often blended factual observation with imaginative elaboration, creating stories that captivated their audiences while obscuring reality. In some cases, accusations of cannibalism served a rhetorical purpose, to depict Egypt as mysterious, powerful, and morally alien. Could the enduring fascination with ritual consumption be more a reflection of the observer's imagination than the observed practices themselves? Modern speculation occasionally drifts toward the sensational, fueled by literature, popular documentaries, and fringe interpretations. Some propose that hidden knowledge of life, death, or immortality might have involved acts now lost to history, or that esoteric rites could have included symbolic or ritualized ingestion of human essence. While such ideas are compelling in narrative, the archaeological and textual evidence remains ambiguous, often pointing instead toward metaphor, allegory, and ritual symbolism rather than literal cannibalism. Yet the myth endures for a reason. It touches on core themes of Egyptian spirituality, the transfer of power, the unity of body and spirit, and the pharaoh's role as intermediary between the mortal and divine worlds. Whether the consumption was physical, symbolic, or somewhere in between, the concept reflects a culture deeply attuned to the notion that energy, essence, and identity could be transferred, transformed, or absorbed. Could the myth itself, whether accurate or exaggerated, be considered a form of ritual preservation? A cautionary tale that emphasizes the sacredness of life, the mystery of power, and the invisible threads connecting kings, gods, and the afterlife? In considering the possibility of ritualized ingestion, one cannot ignore the broader context of Egyptian funerary practice. Mummification, grave goods, and the placement of offerings all serve as reminders that the physical and spiritual were intertwined. Even the act of consuming sustenance could be charged with sacred significance, a bridge between life, death, and eternity. Might references to consumption, misunderstood by outsiders, have been intended as metaphors for eternal participation in divine cycles? Could the act itself have been entirely symbolic, designed to reinforce cosmic order rather than harm? As we stand before the remnants of tombs, temples, and texts, the myth of ritual cannibalism invites both caution and curiosity. It is a story at once disturbing and illuminating, a reflection of humanity's fascination with the unknown, and a reminder that symbols, when filtered through time, culture, and imagination, can take on lives of their own. The Pharaohs, with their secret names, hidden weapons, and carefully orchestrated rituals, understood the power of mystery. Perhaps the cannibalism myth is another testament to that understanding, a narrative that warns, fascinates, and intrigues while concealing the true nature of ancient practice. And so, we are left with questions that remain unresolved. What did these rituals truly signify in the world of the pharaohs? How much of the myth reflects reality, and how much is the shadow cast by centuries of interpretation? Were their acts lost to time that the ancients considered sacred, now misread as horrifying by modern eyes? In the stillness of temples, behind hieroglyphs, and beneath layers of sand, the answer waits, as elusive as the pharaohs themselves, inviting us to wonder, to question, and to continue the search for understanding in a world where mystery was and remains a powerful force. From the vast, sun-scorched expanse of the Giza Plateau, the Great Sphinx gazes eternally across the desert sands, its enigmatic expression fixed in a silent question. The colossal limestone figure, half man, half lion, stands as both guardian and witness to millennia of Egyptian history. Yet, despite its enduring presence, one striking feature is conspicuously absent. The Sphinx's nose, broken and missing, leaving only a jagged remnant that seems almost deliberate, as if time itself conspired to obscure its face. The mystery of how and why this nose vanished has intrigued scholars, travelers, and dreamers for centuries, intertwining history with speculation, archaeology with legend. Historical records hint at the Sphinx's original appearance, though no contemporary depiction survives. Early sketches by explorers in the 17th and 18th centuries already show the monument missing its nose, suggesting that its disappearance predates the modern era. Some accounts attribute the destruction to deliberate vandalism, citing stories of religious iconoclasm or military campaigns. Could it have been a cannonball fired by invading forces, a calculated act by conquerors seeking to symbolically diminish the pharaoh's power, or a violent expression of political or spiritual defiance? Ancient texts provide tantalizing, yet ambiguous clues. Arab historians of the medieval period describe a sphinx damaged by fanatical iconoclasts, while European travelers recount local legends attributing the loss to a cannon fired by Napoleon's troops, though evidence for this is scant. The challenge lies in separating legend from historical fact. Is the missing nose a result of deliberate human action, gradual erosion over centuries, or a combination of both? And why would such a singular detail, so central to the face of the monument, be targeted or lost, leaving the rest of the structure largely intact? The very material of the Sphinx may hold some answers. Carved from a single ridge of limestone, its surface is soft and vulnerable to the relentless forces of wind, sand, and occasional rain. Scholars examining erosion patterns note that the face, particularly the nose, would have been exposed to centuries of abrasive desert storms. Could natural weathering rather than human hands have contributed to its disappearance? Yet, if nature alone were responsible, would we not see more extensive degradation across the entire structure? The mystery deepens when we consider the care with which ancient Egyptians constructed and maintained the Sphinx, suggesting that deliberate maintenance would have sought to preserve its prominent features, including the nose. Speculative theories add layers of intrigue to the debate. Some suggest that the missing nose was intentionally removed as part of ritual or symbolic practice. perhaps linked to the spiritual power associated with the face and gaze of the pharaoh-lion hybrid. In Egyptian belief, the face projected authority, essence, and presence. To damage it could be to symbolically diminish that energy. Could this act, whatever its timing or motivation, reflect a forgotten chapter in the Sphinx's long spiritual and political life, a silent narrative encoded in the very erosion and absence of stone? Archaeologists and historians continue to examine the evidence with painstaking care. Remnants of the nose, fragments discovered in the surrounding sand and limestone quarries suggest that the damage occurred long ago, but the exact circumstances remain elusive. Each fragment is a clue, yet the full story eludes even the most detailed reconstructions. Inscriptions and reliefs nearby offer little explanation, their hieroglyphs focusing on the Sphinx's divine guardianship and its association with solar and funerary rites rather than documenting acts of destruction. Perhaps the Egyptians themselves assumed some knowledge to be self-evident, or perhaps the loss occurred in a period outside of their written records, leaving only silence in its wake. Modern imaging and digital reconstruction have attempted to envision the Sphinx with its missing nose restored. These renderings evoke a sense of what might have been, the proud, symmetrical visage of a deity king, gazing over the Nile plain with unbroken authority. Yet even as technology allows us to recreate a possible past, it also reminds us of the impossibility of certainty. The absence itself has become part of the Sphinx's identity, a tangible mystery that invites reflection on time, power, and human ambition. What is striking is how the missing nose has captured the imagination across cultures and generations. Poets, historians, and explorers have all speculated on its significance, imbuing the monument with layers of narrative beyond its original purpose. Perhaps the mystery itself serves a function akin to the pharaoh's own use of symbols and obfuscation. It draws attention, provokes contemplation, and ensures that the Sphinx remains alive not just as stone, but as an enduring question. As we trace the lines of its weathered visage, the absence of the nose becomes more than a matter of physical loss. It is a doorway into the unknown. Who or what was responsible for this deliberate erasure, and why did it matter so profoundly to those who came after? Could it have been the work of an invader, a zealous reformer, or merely the patient work of time and elements? The truth may lie somewhere between legend and fact, embedded in the shifting sands that have both preserved and concealed the monument for thousands of years. In standing before the Sphinx today, we confront not only a figure of stone, but a symbol of enduring enigma. Its missing nose challenges us to look beyond what is immediately visible, to question assumptions, and to ponder the interplay between human intention and the relentless forces of nature. The gap in its face becomes a mirror for our curiosity, inviting us to imagine what has been lost and what remains eternally enigmatic. And so, the Sphinx continues its silent vigil, its gaze fixed across the desert, compelling us to wonder, what stories lie hidden in the spaces where stone is missing, and what truths remain buried beneath centuries of sand and myth? The mystery of the Sphinx's nose endures, a quiet testament to history's unresolved questions, waiting for those willing to peer deeply into the shadowed corridors of time.